Well, well, well. Ladies and gentlemen, I am back yet again with another spectacular, amazing video. So this time, while I'm biding time until the Aaron character analysis comes out, which will probably be my last video. Oh, and my romance video as well. Those two, I'm then gonna wrap it up, call it a day. Maybe, maybe I'll call it a day. At least those will be my last video essays. Maybe I'll still react to nonsense like this. But one of my good friends, I guess friend is a stretch. We do, have a very strong animus towards each other. Suggested that I watch this video. It's a great video about why AOT is bad, bad, why how it lost its way, it failed, the ending failed. I just love stuff like that, and I love to, debunk this. It's obviously nonsense, garbage. Nothing about this is going to be valid. And he told me to skip. He told me to skip to the 8th minute because he just rambles about why he likes AOT. And just minutes 8 onward are the actual criticism. And I was originally going to do that, but then I thought, no, I'm not going to skip what he likes about AOT. I'm not going to skip that. The reason I'm not going to skip that is because I want to prove to you that all these ending hater problems, they have a root, and they have a root in a fundamental misunderstanding of the story. And the analogy I like to use is, I actually have two analogies this time. So like, if you're a gun person, so minutes of angle, right? That is the degrees, like degrees of the angle at which your firearm is off by. And if a firearm is, if you're inaccurate, if your scope's inaccurate by 1 degree of angle, 1 minute degree of angle, at 200 yards, it's going to be closer to the target than at 500 yards. That little mistake that starts at the scope gets exasperated the longer it goes on. Another analogy with a plane. If a plane is traveling from Los Angeles to Hong Kong, and the plane travels, it diverts 5 degrees off its angle, 5 degrees off of its route. So let's say 2 degrees off of its route from Los Angeles to Hong Kong. The plane is going to be in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, right? I don't know exactly where it's going to go. I'm not going to do that, but you get the point. The small inaccuracy extended over a long period of time eventually lands it to being a big failure. The failure didn't start when the plane landed in the Pacific Ocean. Just like the failure didn't happen when 139 came out. The failure happened way back in chapter 1. So I'm actually going to watch this video from the beginning, and I'm going to it's going to seem nitpicky at first. I'm going to nitpick certain things, and then I will show you how those nitpicks, how those small misunderstandings that he had at the beginning of the story led to him not liking the ending. All right, let's get into this.
Back to Attack on Titan. From the very beginning of Attack on Titan, I loved Eren Yeager. The brutal simplicity of this revenge-driven boy spurned forward by his mother's gruesome death instantly hooked me. It's such a
You know what? I may have to disagree here. Just this in the first seconds. I think what a lot of people don't understand about Eren, and I don't think he's necessarily saying this, but I think it's very important to clear this up. Eren was not spurred on to fight Titans because he was angry and wanted to get revenge because they killed his mom. What he was actually upset about was the Titans took away. I mean, his real or imagined freedom, maybe mixture of both. They took away his freedom. He was fine. Again, I really need you guys to remember this. The story goes out of its way to show how fine and how well off the inhabitants of Paradise Island were. They were fine. There was no necessity to go outside. Again, I likened the survey corps to NASA, only much more dangerous because there's no reason for space exploration. There's no practical reason for it, but they do it for the sake of exploring new places. You do it for the sake of, I guess, adventure, knowledge. I guess is the better thing. Just to be able to explore your horizons, and that is what the Survey Corps was for. That's why it's called the Survey Corps. Okay, they're surveying land, or the Scout Regiment, which is not. It's not the Scout Regiment, but the Scouting Legion. Those don't exist in Attack. There's no such thing as called this Scout Regiment in Attack on Titan. It's not a real thing. But that's what it is. And so Eren was furious angry to the point of bitterness that it held him back from any sort of joy or happiness because he couldn't help the fact that there was stuff that was outside the walls that he couldn't see. I brought this interview up a billion times. I'm going to bring it up again. The Armin interview. Let me just pull it up quickly so I can read the Armin interview. Give me a second. I'm not going to find this interview, am I? Let me see. Oh well. I'm probably actually not going to find this interview. But what I can say is that it said, oh, here it is right here. Yes. So, Isayama says, however, Aaron was different from Armin, who fought for the goal of even just seeing the ocean once. In truth, Aaron's not committed to seeing the sea. Even though Aaron and Armin became great childhood friends because they shared the dream of the outside of the world outside the walls, but the root of the dream has slight differences. This is very important. So, when it comes to the oppression, the freedom taken away from the inhabitants of Paradise Island, Aaron was slightly different in the fact that what Isayama's about to say right here. Armin possessed a curiosity for knowledge and held onto the thought of wanting to see again. Curiosity for knowledge, which is the true mission of the Survey Corps, which is why it is wholly appropriate and altogether fitting that Armin is the commander of the Survey Corps, the last commander of the Survey Corps. Well, not the Survey Corps of the Alliance. The Survey Corps never fights Aaron, but that's all in a separate subject. Aaron, on the other hand, viewed it as a sea obviously exists, but I don't have the freedom to see, and he felt indignation towards that. Okay. Wonderful stuff. So what Isayama is saying here is that Aaron knew that the ocean existed, and he was pissed off and upset to the point where he was so bitter he could not experience any true form of joy because there was something that in the world that he wanted that he couldn't have. Armin and the Survey Corps, they knew the ocean was there and they were not bitter about not seeing it, but they were happy and they were looking forward to seeing it. Two completely different things. So it's very, very, very important to get this down. I know it's just like a nitpick. But it's really not. Let's continue.
Basic idea, a tragic plot beat not unlike those that kick off so many works of fiction, imploring us to understand the protagonist's emotions and drive going forward. And yet, particularly with the anime, it solidified this as one of my favorite opening episodes of any show. The way it builds to the Colossal Titan's first appearance, these shots of a beautiful sky stretching out over the wall, clouds moving quickly as the wind picks up, the world seeming too slow as people go about their everyday lives. Then the wind stops. The world goes completely still as one final moment of normalcy stretches before their world is forever changed. The Titan shadow falling over a minuscule character selling just how big of a threat this is in comparison to them. How it's more like a force of nature than a simple monster. The music swelling in with them, like the chiming bells and chanting choir are something they brought with them from the outside as well. Though we didn't get that much time with Aaron's mother before this, that hardly...
Yeah, in fact, the time we do... I'm sorry, I just really hammer this point home. The time he gets to his mother's still alive, he's arguing with her about wanting to go to the outside world. Right? His mother didn't die, no one was oppressed or hurt. Again, the story goes out of its way, on many occasions, to say how fine they were and how they were able to live their lives in peace and happiness and whatnot, without having to go outside the walls.
Matters, because the way she screams and yells at Aaron, begging him to just listen to her this one time, the way she has to cover her mouth to stop herself from screaming at them to come back for her, in just a couple...
Which, by the way, I'm sorry, I probably did this so much, but, so, that, okay... That scene right there when she covers his mouth, I use that a lot and I compare it a lot to Aaron at 139. The famous "No, I don't want that" scene, which I'm sure he's gonna have no time. He's gonna have spare no expense talking about the "No, I don't want that" scene. Um, but that is basically what happened with Aaron, and I usually struggle to find the words to convey this, but um, you know, in "No, I don't want that," Aaron. That's how he. How do I say this? That's how he feels about Mikasa, but he doesn't say it, out loud, like obviously. But he feels that way, and of course, in many scenarios, we find ourselves where we feel one way, but we say another thing because we know that it's not that we know it's it's polite to do another thing. It's we know it's the best thing to do. That's what we want to convey. It's like it's not from a disingenuous standpoint. And what I mean by that is the a part of her, Carla, wants to scream and tell him to come back to save her. The part that is you know, the survival instincts, I guess you could say, or the self preservation instincts. That's what I was looking for. But she covers her mouth because the mother in her is the part of her this mother wants her is selfless and wants her kids to go and be safe. Sorry, her child and then Mikasa. That can slip up there. So it's kind of the same as I want that. So I love it. I just love how he understands. He actually explicitly brought this up. How he understands how she does this on purpose. How she can scream out, she covers her mouth, and then she says, "Don't go." She actually says, "Don't go," out loud. She vocalizes that, and then they run off. It's kind of the same thing with "No, I don't want that." I just want to put that in there.
Scenes, it makes me buy into their relationship, understand their dynamic, and believe that they are a family. As with any big moment in a story, it all comes down to the presentation. Not the simple beats of the plot, not a synopsis of events, but the things they make us feel as every element of this piece of art comes together to create something truly powerful and memorable. But of course, there's a lot more to Aaron than this moment alone. Even before tragedy strikes, the first thing we learn about him is that he's a contrarian. While the society at large is fine staying within the walls, he views this piece as a temporary, hollow existence, like they're animals in a cage. No, in order
Hey, where's that? Let's listen to that again.
About him is that he's a contrarian. While the society at large is fine staying within the walls, he views this piece as a temporary,
While the society at large is a piece of things in the walls, not the society is fine being inside the walls. The society is that piece of being inside the walls. Again, the subtle language leads us to believe that Aaron was in the right for feeling this way.
hollow existence, like they're animals in a cage. No, in order to really live, to really be free, you would
It's
need
very interesting. Very, very interesting. Because so they talk about, being animals in a cage. Talks to Mikasa about the chickens, being caged animals and whatnot. So then what Isayama does is Isayama, takes away the walls. In fact, Aaron uses the walls to go attain the highest possible freedom he can. He's the most powerful person in the world at the time. He gets to do whatever he wants to do. There's nothing stopping him. And even at that point, he isn't free. Because really, the true message is freedom comes from within, right? Now, there's many ways. What I say is I say contentment. That's the main thing. There's many ways you can phrase it, right? So I think a lot of people, especially since I'm very dogmatic, people think that if they don't say something exactly the way I said it, that I think that they're wrong, that they are wrong, which is not true. There's many, many ways to phrase this. So I guess another way you could say it is very Japanese things are freedom comes from within. Like, I can imagine that Master Uguay saying that. But that's the actual message, which is why he starts here. And, another thing I was realizing was, very, very, very curious, especially when it comes to Mikasa. When they think about the good old days or like the times of comfort and peace and happiness, they always think about when they were quote unquote imprisoned in the walls. Like that's what they're trying to return to. That's what they're trying to go back to. Pretty much ever since they got to the ocean, they've been always wanting to go back to the walls because they were at least had a semblance of true happiness and peace there. Now that the war started, now that this is all happening, and now that Aaron's straight away, now Aaron's lost himself, and Aaron, Armor's lost a friend, Mikasa's lost a lover. now they want to go back to where they're imprisoned, even though they're supposedly supposed to be free because Aaron's more powerful, whatever.
Need to see beyond those walls. And this focus on freedom defines his character every bit as much as his mother's death. And yet, despite his convictions, Aaron's freedom has been in question from the very start. Being carried away from his mother by Hans, Keith busting his equipment to try and stop him from becoming a soldier, Levi and the Survey Corps keeping him on a tight leash when they learn he's a Titan shifter. At many points, Aaron starts to even function more as a plot device than a protagonist, getting kidnapped and moved around from scene to scene, his moments of action few and far between. There's so much standing between him and his goals, and a lot of that is simply out of his control. In the end, it all leads to a natural question: how much freedom has Aaron ever truly had? Altogether, what makes Aaron so interesting to me is how brutally the story challenges his ideals. Because on its face, Aaron got what he needed here, the power necessary to defeat the Titans and win his freedom. And yet with that same power, he gets more restrictions. So for Aaron, every win has a greater loss buried beneath its surface. Like how right away, Aaron turning into a Titan brings Aaron's whole worldview into question. The Titans are bad. They're the monster. So what does it mean if Aaron, for some reason he can't possibly know, has become one of those monsters? This way, his transformation manages to implicitly challenge him on the most fundamental level, turning the premise of the story and Aaron's convictions on their heads. And naturally, this is only used to push back against him more. After all, with this power comes responsibility. He's humanity's ultimate weapon, so this can no longer be his personal quest alone. He has a duty to his companions, to his people, something larger than himself to live for. And yet, where others may see purpose, aren't these also just more restrictions? Perhaps the worst thing this power does to Aaron is make him lonely. After all, some of him must have already felt that way before when the world was seemingly at peace, but now he's joined the Survey Corps. He's surrounded by comrades with similar goals. And yet, due to his powers, he's left isolated, worrying that he won't be able to build relationships built on trust or have anyone he can rely on. And how couldn't he feel that way as the number of lives lost protecting him continues to climb higher and higher? And when his comrades suffer deaths every bit as brutal as his mother's. Squaw and Levi's death changes Aaron, but it's not just the fact they died, it's the way they died.
I don't really think that's true. And it's basically like a nitpick, but I'm wondering to see where he's going to go with this.
Aaron chose to trust the plan and run away.
Haha! See, right there, that right there. Yes, the classic AoE argument, which, I really, really don't, I hate to use this phrase, such a cliche, but I love to say, reading comprehension, you don't understand the story. Two very big ED cliches. But I love it because they're so accurate. But no, I really, really, really need people, and I know it's been 11 years since season 1 aired. Well, I guess 10 number. But seriously, please, go back and actually reread what happened. If I have all my manga packed, I'm actually about to fly out in a couple hours, I would get the manga and I would read it myself. Perhaps I should go and share my screen and go through the pages. Maybe I'll start to boot that up. But yeah, guys. First off, there's a couple things. A, the story explicitly says that there's no right or wrong decision. And B, I think most people forgot what actually happened with the squad Levi plan. I don't think people can actually, conceptualize what would happen if Squad Levi didn't die and he did just lash out. It is very possible that Aaron would have been kidnapped by the female Titan. He'd be in Marley. The story would be over. I think that a lot of people misunderstand what's actually happening here, and they actually forget the actual story beats. I'll poke around and I'll try to find the chapter, maybe.
To believe,
I don't want to extend the video too long.
Even his growth, to think that he could be something other than that child hopelessly rushing toward a Titan. And yet, it didn't turn out. Even with all his training and power, it was so much like that day, and it made him feel like a weak child once more. So now he needs to be worth that loss. Failure isn't an option. Trying his best simply isn't good enough. And other characters tell him this, let him know what they expect of him, what he needs to do. And if he can't do that, if he won't, well, then they'll keep pushing him. And even if they don't, the world certainly will. And isn't it only natural for someone to crack under all that pressure? Following failure after failure, Eren finally has a moment where he stops fighting. And seeing him at this pathetic low, knowing he's capable of such a pathetic low, it only made him more compelling to me. Because this is the ultimate change for Eren, isn't it? For him to go from someone special, someone chosen, to a mistake that never needed to have happened. I love everything about this scene. The way it builds to Eren's breakdown, the atrocity his father committed, killing children, and even someone Historia deeply loved. The parallels of his own father injecting him with the Titan serum, and now the same thing about to happen to Historia too. And the terror as he sees so much of his father in Rod. How even if it's a lie or at least a deeply twisted version of the truth, Eren is forced to face the idea that so long as he has this power, the Titans will remain, making his very existence something that stands between him and his goal of destroying them. And Eren's silence throughout this scene, the look in his eyes as in horror he watches his world and everything he believed in crumble apart. It makes this twist hit not because of its wider ramifications for the plot, but because of his character, because I care about Eren, and he's learning info that will no doubt lead to
Hi, we're Visible, the wireless company that makes things visible. With us, what you see
a deep change within him. And it's not just Eren who makes this scene so fantastic, it's Historia, and how the story calls back to the past moments that were so key to her life, to the deep-seated reasons she can't just be a pawn in Rod Rice's scheme, and why she decides Eren can't be either. Live your life with pride.
That's not why. more misunderstandings of the story. More, it's amazing to me how many people just forget what happens. And this man, I mean, maybe he went through it and got it in post, but this is ridiculous. Yeah, he went through and got it in post. This is ridiculous. No, I actually saw a tweet from one of my greatest arch rivals, one of the people that I despise the most on Twitter, and he was like something like, "Oh, Eren manipulated Storia and made her gaslit her into believing that." The only way that they can save the island is by the rumbling, yada yada yada. No, guys, no. I mean, and this is again, this is the one thing that the AoE chuds get right. Enemies of humanity. No, Soria is a sick, evil person, very, very, very dark person, and the reason why she didn't listen to her father is because of that. She's just purely a wicked person, and she's sick, and she says explicitly, the term "enemies of humanity" comes from what Historia said. That's not some cringe AoE, phrase. That's what she said. The reason she didn't save Eren is because she's simply a selfish person and she wanted to save her friend over the world. And so, she didn't say, "Oh, my dad's wrong. This isn't true." What she said was, "Oh, I don't care. Humanity can die. I don't care. Yeah, who cares? I don't care. I'm gonna save you. If it makes me the worst girl in the world, fine. Yeah, I'm the worst girl. I'm a bad person." And then so she sacrifices the world for her friend. Season 3, then Eren loops around in 130 and is like, "Hey, Historia, why don't you sacrifice the rest of the world to this island? You are the worst girl in the world after all." And she is the worst girl in the world. And so she, in her own wicked self, with her own agency, she decided to do evil and do the rumbling. She was not manipulated or gaslit. She's just a bad person. And this isn't a secret at all. This isn't like, anyone else who has to peel back the layers and be like, "Oh, I have a nuanced opinion." No, it's just like she just says it in the story. Like it just makes it very clear.
And there's no need to spell anything out in dialogue beyond that, is there? Because this image of
because you understand the story.
Ymir with the beautiful sunlit sky behind her, it gets across the tone and deeper meaning so well in a way heavy-handed dialogue never could. And when Eren does manage to get a win following this scene, it doesn't simply feed his freedom complex. Instead, he walks away from this seemingly more mature, understanding that this power isn't truly his own and that he's no more special than anyone else. That great power comes from joining together. He doesn't need to view these restrictions as negative. Instead, he needs to accept that this is how his life is now, and that there's an important purpose in that. But then the basement happens, and everything changes once more. Before this moment, the outside world was a source of hope for Eren. He may have stopped focusing on that shared dream with Armin as much, but it still stood as a bright light at the end of a very dark tunnel. Now though, well, he learns from his father's words and memories that the world outside the wall is every bit as cruel as the world inside. In fact, it's probably worse. So is there really freedom out there, or just more obstacles and enemies ready to take their lives? Of course, Eren's answer is clear. Those enemies on the other side of here. If we kill them all, does that mean we'll be free? And the way everyone else is so excited, but Aaron just looks almost detached and confused. It
Yes.
really sells him as separate from these soldiers and his
Yes.
friends, his memories, his understanding of his father's words. Once more, they've changed him, and he understands his
Yes.
role doesn't simply demand deeper responsibility.
Yes.
No, there's something more sinister there, something born only from seeing this truth about the outside world. Which is why, to me, the best moment surrounding this twist isn't the flashback to Grisha or any of the shocking revelations that come with it. No, the most meaningful moment is far simpler than that. I don't know what the right choice is. How can anyone know the future? We still don't know a thing. Flaming water, frozen plains, snowfields on sand. There's an endless number of possibilities. I think on the other side of the walls, there's freedom. Much like with the story's premise, this terror is equally brutal and effective in its simplicity. A pack of wild dogs killing a young girl, killing his father's little sister because he made one terrible mistake, because he dared to go beyond the walls. Titans, dogs, or any other creature, it doesn't matter. This is a world where cruelty lurks around every corner, where so long as there are people around, suffering will follow. Underlying all the complexity.
Which, by the way, is the actual reason. That right there is the actual reason Aaron started the rumbling. And, it's kind of, I think this is a good way to put it. I used to say, I used to say a lot of stuff, which is all true, of course. But I think that the normal way to put it, um, really is, when people say he got outside the walls and he realized there was only more walls, that nonsense. But I think the best way I think he put it very well. He goes outside the walls and there's just more, more suffering as there was before, more. I wouldn't say necessarily persecution, but there was more of that going on. And so, because humans are like them, they create this sort of that situation. That is why Aaron actually decided to do rumbling. So they're kind of right when they say there's another wall, but they're wrong what they mean it's another wall. The other wall isn't the oppression of the Paradisians. The other wall is just simply the fact that it's literally not a paradise outside, which is why Aaron started rumbling.
Complexity baked into these strange supernatural systems, titans and serums and shifters and paths and all of it. The moments that form our characters' emotional cores are often so simple, so easy to relate with. And that's why I was able to understand how Aaron, after learning about this, would become every bit as cold and cruel as the world he was forced to face. Aaron's conversation with Reiner here has to be one of the story's best scenes. Finally sitting with this character again, but seeing him so different. Laying out Reiner's perspective with a cold confidence and conviction, telling him how before he was like a child, unable to understand Reiner, but now he gets it. He's engaged with the wider world, has learned how everyone is so similar, how they all have their own perspectives, dreams, and justifications. It feels like, in a way, Aaron has grown up, has come to understand that he can see humanity in the enemy, can see himself in the enemy. More than anything else, Titans have gone from monsters to objects of pity, people who had their freedom stripped away from them by a force greater than themselves. That even holds true for the likes of Annie, Berthold, and Reiner, who he hated so much. Eldian child soldiers fighting for Marley, much of their autonomy taken from them. So now, Aaron's revenge isn't against the Titans. It's against the people who took freedom away from the Titans, and from him and his friends and others like them. And yet, somehow, that hasn't made Aaron any kinder, any less violent. In fact, it's just the opposite. Because if he can see himself in the enemy, that means he understands their fear, and he knows that, just like him, they won't back down. They're too similar, which is exactly why Aaron chooses to be like Reiner, killing the enemy regardless of how many might be innocent, all because of his sense of responsibility, all because of
reading comprehension is so bad. All right, no. If you actually read that conversation again, you actually pay attention this time, you will see that Reiner. Yeah, oh God, I can't believe I'm listening to this in 2024. This is insane. Aaron goes to the basement. He asks, "Why did my mother die?" Which, by the way, reading comprehension, folks. Aaron is, when he asks, "Why did my mother die?" He's not trying to guilt trip Reiner. He's not, mad at Reiner for killing his mom. He's finally confronting him. He's asking him to set something up. This is a very, common rhetorical device that gets used a lot. What example would I use for this? But yeah, no, it's just a common rhetorical device for someone to ask a question, and the question isn't the goal. You're leading somewhere. And so that's the only reason why he's asking that. So he asks, why did my mother die? Oh, you read a small more. He says, no, why? You see, if you actually have reading comprehension, you'll understand that he goes along. He says, okay, why did Wave against the breach it? And then Reiner goes and he says, oh, I had to do it because we have to save humanity. Right? We're doing a good thing. We're saving humanity. And of course, this after. There's actually a really cool scene before this chapter, when Runner's having a flashback of there's a flashback of Runner's childhood, and then it cuts back to the training arc. And then when Keith asks him, "Why are you here?" and he says, "To save humanity." And it's very good recontextualization, because when Ryan says, "I'm here to save humanity," he's talking as a warrior to save humanity from the Island Devils, which was a true mission. But what Keith means is he's to save humanity, thinking humanity is only the Paradisians, and save them from the Titans. So then Aaron says, okay. He says sarcastically, if that's what you were doing, if that's what you were doing to save humanity, then I guess you had no choice. And then Ryan says, oh, wait, actually, hold on a second. You may think that. However, I wasn't doing this to save humanity. I wasn't doing this as a sense of duty. I was doing this for my own personal reasons. I had a situation with my father, and I want my father to be proud of me. I want to be looked upon as a hero. So for my own personal sense of self-actualization, I did this, and it may have aligned with certain altruistic goals, but that was never the intention. Those were just a byproduct, a happy coincidence. And then Aaron turns to him and he says, oh, we really are the same. Meaning, so the analogy goes, if it was to say parody, then you had no choice, did you? And then it would be, no, actually, this wasn't for parody. I had my own sense of, I thought, I had my own contentment issues, joy issues, whatever you want to say. Wherever you want to put it. I lacked this whatever thing. And I want to achieve self-actualization. I did the rumbling. Okay. That's what actually happened in this chapter. And of course, the Aaron stuff I'm talking about is not explicitly stated. But Reiner does explicitly this was not out of duty. So again, this just shows a lack of reading comprehension and a lack of understanding the story that you would miss. I mean, it's 2024, guys. Like I feel like I don't have this chapter memorized. I don't even own the manga for this, and I have this chapter memorized. I have to keep going back to this and reciting it for you people.
Because of his desire for freedom, and all because he simply doesn't see another option. Yet,
again, look at the conversation. Aaron says you have no choice, and then Ryan says no, you're wrong. He says you have no choice. Ryan says no, you're wrong. And Aaron says we're the same. So the lack of options was not what it was about. Whew.
Underlying all of that, there's such a simple question. Why was my mom eaten by a Titan that day? And the story's willingness to take its time on...
Yeah, I told you, this was just going to show a very big lack of reading comprehension.
This development to follow another set of characters entirely for multiple chapters and episodes, barely mentioning or showing Eren throughout. It's bold, but it makes the parallel between Eren and the rest of the world so much more powerful, because now I'm seeing Eren through the eyes of characters I also understand so well. Because now, much like how Eren forced himself to spend time among and understand the enemy, the story has forced me to as well. And that's the only reason I can truly feel how much of a monster Eren has become. This is the type of emotion-driven storytelling that's only possible for me when proper time is allotted to it, and when characters are put at the center of the action. This is why the basement twist worked so well for me, not the moment of reveal in and of itself, but the sheer commitment to its implications and how it impacts Eren. It truly felt like all the challenges I had watched him go through up until this point had culminated in this. However, there was still the simple fact that all I could do now was try and read into Eren's motives. Because even after this, we no longer got much in the way of internal monologues from him.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since the multi-year time skip following Eren at the ocean, he had become a mystery to be solved, his plans up in the air. It was another bold narrative choice, and one that kept me reading with bated breath, waiting for whatever grand reveal had been cooked up this time. And it led to what many consider Attack on Titan's greatest twist of all. And the moment I started to fear, Attack on Titan was losing its way.
Wow, 15 minutes of yapping. Holy cow.
Become the master of the air, the thunder.
Well, I wonder, I almost think it's, almost intentional. Where it's like Aaron is this character that's, again, giant mystery, does all this politicking. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to just he's this. Really, if you really, really just boil it down, he's just a child throwing a temper tantrum. And I wonder if that's purposely supposed to be anticlimactic. Just a thought I had in this moment. This is not like some ED, ultra refined thesis, but there may be some thematic value in that. Very interesting.
This is it, everybody. After chapters and chapters of Eren and Zeke trying to touch brotherly bonds, they've finally done it and they're inside paths together. They're going on a tour through Grisha's memories. Zeke still thinks Eren is being influenced by his father's brainwashing, but that was never how it happened. In fact, Zeke couldn't be more wrong, and that's where we get the big, brain-busting reveal. Eren told Grisha to kill this family in the Crystal Catacombs, and Eren told him to take the Founding Titan for himself. And I didn't like this moment. Well,
very interesting. I'm actually almost happy he didn't like this. A lot of people. Okay, I actually have hope for the story now. For the video now. A lot of people they say, oh, 131 was an amazing chapter. I'm like, why did you like 131? You're an ending hater. Why did you like 131? People are like, oh, Midnight Sun, Hero, Perfect Game were so good. Well, you're an ending hater. Why do you like Midnight Sun Perfect? Like, what's the to me? Oh, Aaron was such a great character. Really? Why is he a great character? You're an ending hater. Why would you think he's a great character? So I actually like this. This is good, and this is. And here's the thing. Here's the thing when it comes to, and I talk about this all the time. When it comes to hating the ending, back in April 2021, it was 139 was a problem. Then those people started getting out of their emotions. It's like, oh, it's actually 137 to 139. That's the whole final battle's bad. Well, 127, the alliance forming, that's bad. This guy's going all the way back to 121. So, I really appreciate the fact, and this just, again, guys, this just shows that the storyline followed a cohesive narrative from start to finish. Because if you have to go back to change it, you're eventually going to have to go back to the beginning. And the only reason we're not going back to the beginning is because you misunderstand the beginning. So I actually like this, that he's going this further back. And again, it's like, okay, well, how further back are you going to go to where it's like you're making an entirely different story with the same characters. Like you're just taking the same characters and you're just writing a different story. Because the characters are not the story. They're a part of the story. The themes of the actual story. Like I've said many times. And so it almost feels to me like they're just taking, when they do this, it's like, well, how many times back to where it's like the ending wasn't changed and you just don't like the story as a whole, which it's much better. Is much better. I respect people a lot who say they don't like 131. I do. I would much rather someone say, you know what, Attack on Titan was an awful show, garbage show. I didn't like it. I almost prefer people say that they didn't like the ocean stuff. Oh, after the ocean, it went downhill. Because that just shows that the real problem is just a lack of misunderstanding, just a lack of reading comprehension, understanding the story prior. You didn't pick up on the subtle things prior, so when it started bubbling to the surface, now saying you don't like it, but it was always there. But you just don't like it once it got more apparent. So I can appreciate that. I don't like people who like, the ending, 131 was amazing, and the rest 8 chapters were bad. No, that's ridiculous. So I'm actually very curious. Let's see.
Well, maybe that's too strong. As I read through the chapter and saw the masterful presentation of Grisha's...
And also the other thing, other point of praise here. This is a very ballsy move, because this is like universally. This right here is for some strange. Before the ending aired, this was called the best episode of AOT. I kid you not, which is ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous to me. That was called the best episode of AOT. There's far better chapters. This is massively praised by everyone, universally. Before Core 1, before Core 2, I mean, even after Core 1, this was like this was it. This was it right here. 121. Members of the Future. This was it. People were saying that Members of the Future was better than Return to Gotcha. People who I deeply respect and admire were saying that this is better than. This is like the best chapter in all of fiction. This is the best chapter in AOT.
To shock and terror, saw Zeke's realization of how wrong he was and the simple cool factor of Aaron's commitment here. I was shocked. And just like with many of Attack on Titan's best plot twists, it had taken my breath away. But then I set the chapter aside and I just thought about it. I thought about the wider implications, about what it really means if Aaron can manipulate the past.
He can't.
If he already has manipulated the past. And that's when I got a little concerned.
I'm sorry to keep asking, but I really do. It's very important to stay balanced, and I really do respect this. This is good. This is really good. No, I can't. I almost can't stand it when people. I argue with people all the time, and I almost can't stand it when people are like, "Oh, damn, 131, 121 was amazing, but 139 was awful." And I would use 139. I would use this a lot. Just to as an apologetic to be like, oh, you like this, you like 131, you like 130, you like 122, 121, you just like 139 all the time. I know it doesn't seem apparent now that I'm like now there seems no connection, but I'll get into arguments with people. If you got into arguments, I use this chapter a lot. I use 131 a lot. And I'll say you like this, you should like this. So I really, really do appreciate and respect the fact that he's just not being a consumer and be like, oh, cool plot twist, I love it. And then he's, when Aaron's not a super based Giga Chad Marin, his Aryan waifu, now you have a problem with it. I really do respect this. This is good. You're obviously he's completely wrong. Obviously he lacks reading comprehension. Obviously doesn't understand the story. But this is something I can respect. Not being carried away by your emotions is very good. And I like the fact that he said he read the chapter, he was excited, he put it away, and he got into his level head. Lots of people do this. Again, to my chagrin, Americans were on Twitter talking about the ending when the ending didn't come out yet in English. Like, this is how emotional quick we are. It's just jumped the gun. He put the chapter away, collected himself. This is good stuff.
Concerned. Because here's the thing, I already loved that past scene between Aaron and Historia in the catacombs. And a big part of that was because of Aaron's terror at what his father had done. I had
you brought that up.
Already grown attached to this version of events where
this is very good. I like this.
Grisha did something for his own reasons, but they were entirely separate from Aaron. Something that he played no part in, but now this wouldn't have happened without him.
Correct.
So yes, we do get a really cool twist here, but the cost of that twist is that my prior interpretation of the scene,
your prior interpretation of the scene gets deepened. See, and this is why I spent so much time in the beginning nitpicking. Because, guys, the interpretation of the scene is that Aaron was the cause of this. This is why I say all the time. I don't know if you've ever seen like the that meme. If I had a more sophisticated system, I would get the memes and posts and all that. But I don't have any editing software, so we just got to roll with it. That meme where it's like let me see if I can try to find it. Actually. Here it is right here. Here it is. Okay. Here it is right here. Yes, we're getting fancy up here. Yes. We're getting very, very fancy. Yes. The IQ bell curve. Let me see. Replace screen sharing. Okay, so it's like this, where it's like the people, and they'll be usually saying the same thing. Let's just say, super controversial answer. Ukraine is wrong. Like, so these two, this guy was saying Ukraine is wrong. This guy would be saying Ukraine is wrong. This guy's like, yo, Russia's bad. And it's kind of like, it's kind of like this, where it's like, on the one hand, we have people. Why did I bring this meme up? Where was I going with this? Oh yes, the whole protagonist thing. Yes. So on the one hand, people say, the people who don't know anything about storytelling say Aaron's a protagonist and antagonist. The people who are slightly more intelligent be like, no, Aaron's just the protagonist. The really smart people on this side, Aaron's the protagonist and the antagonist. That's actually why I brought that up. Yes. So this is why I say Aaron actually is the protagonist and the antagonist. The reason why Aaron's the protagonist and the antagonist is because Aaron does fight himself. Aaron is figuratively, like metaphorically and physically fighting against himself. He's fighting against the actions he's caused, which is why the Dinah twist works, which is why it brings up all some of the Dinah arguments. So the Dinah twist, his mother dies, he gets angry, and he's fighting against the consequences of his own actions. Same thing with this, and I'm glad he caught this, because not many people catch this. Yes, the cause of his suffering and pain beforehand, when it constantly goes to his lowest moment
interpretation
after his mom died, was the fact that his father did that in the cave. He's the one who caused it. And if you go to the beginning, where I started to break this down, Aaron himself and his bitterness didn't allow him, stole all of his joy. And so Aaron was his own worst enemy, not the walls, not the Titans. And so this fits in with the theme, which is why it's this, which is really why this is a brilliant plot twist. And which is really why I get furious when people like this, when people like Aaron's charge, when people, especially the dub version, when people like 131, and then like, oh, the Mikasa thing was bad. I got crap for saying that the Mikasa, it was Mikasa was the best plot twist, and I knew I would get crap for it because people just care about shiny things. Ooh, it might make my spine tingle. Ooh, it was exciting. Ooh, it had great music. Ooh. Not realizing the true. No one actually knows the real reason why Erwin's speech was good. No one knows why that was good. No one actually knows. No one knows the reason why 131 was good. No one really knows the actual reason why this is a good plot twist. They just like, because, oh, it was exciting. Ooh. So I really, really do appreciate this. Even though he's completely wrong, I really do appreciate the consistency. I really, really do. I wish when people actually hated this. I'm actually angry that people like Return to Shiganshina. People like, oh, Return to Shiganshina was one of the best arcs in fiction. Then I hate 139. 139 is just Return to Shiganshina. Anyway, I'm getting too bad about this. I'm getting way too mad about this. But the reason why it was Mikasa was the best twist because it had the most thematic relevance. Because, again, themes are the most important. Not your spine tingling, the themes. Okay, let's continue.
And I've already grown attached to, and that made perfect sense based on...
See, this is the thing. Here's the thing. Who cares if you grew attached to it? We don't care. That's relevant. What you grew attached to, what you personally like, it doesn't matter at all.
All the information provided now becomes incorrect.
Correct.
And the emotions I felt, well, they feel undermined.
I understand that, and this is a problem with the ending as well. People were expecting something, and then they didn't get that thing. And then now they didn't get that thing, now they're upset. Guys, really, your emotions are not relevant at all. Please take your emotions out of it.
Now, I want to be clear here. In this specific instance, this isn't awful by any stretch of the imagination, because that prior scene still retains a ton of its emotion. After all, regardless of what happened later...
You see this? Do you guys notice how, in the beginning, he talks about how he felt during it, how it impacted his emotions, how it's compelling? All these things that are not real, that don't exist. And what I mean by that, it's not a true characteristic of something. Your emotion is a subjective thing. It doesn't exist in that. It doesn't exist in what doesn't affect the real world. So it's kind of like, and I bring about this example. Like, let's say, I'm going to use a much less popular person. I'm going to use. Let's say I say Tom Cruise is the best actor because I like him. I'm biased towards Tom Cruise, so therefore he's the best actor. People be like, no, your bias that's a bad thing. That's a flaw. But no, I'm biased towards Tom Cruise, so therefore he's a better actor. My bias doesn't exist in the real world. It's not a real characteristic of Tom Cruise. The real characteristics of Tom Cruise are his emotions, his facial expressions, his line delivery, his cadence, his whatever. Those are true characteristics. My bias is not a real thing that exists in actuality. It exists in myself only. So he talks about how this is why compelling is not a real word. Something can be objectively not compelling, but something being compelling, that's not a real thing. People say, so when he says, I was compelled by this scene hit my emotions, I love the scene, in the background when, conveys this powerful message. These are all things that are not relevant. These are things that only exist within yourself. And then you say, now he's saving the scene, not by saying it was part of the narrative, it was part of the plot, it was good for Aaron's character, it was good for the themes. What he said was, it still retains a lot of emotions. Your emotions are not relevant at all. I really wish people get this. Your emotions are completely and totally irrelevant. Completely not important in any way, shape, or form. How you felt during a certain scene is not important and does not play into whether the scene is good or not in any way.
This Aaron, at this point in time, still needed to face what had happened, still felt these emotions and this pain, and it still built up his relationship with Historia and showed her at her strongest and most compelling. If anything, Aaron becoming the person who caused this, after being so horrified about it, well, it's a fantastic way to solidify his status as the story's villain. Plus, okay, the connection with Ymir here, like that we go from the other Ymir telling Historia that she needs to live free, which inspires her to tell Aaron that he needs to live free and do what he wants to do and that he can't give up, which then is reflected when Aaron tells the original Ymir kind of the same thing to break her free from her chain, just like
don't want to do. No, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna. Nope.
how Historia broke him free from his chains, and that's just, it's great. It's super cool. I love it. So really, in and of itself, this scene is great. And yet, I still had concerns. Because yes, while it worked here, this brought in the possibility that Aaron could manipulate the past again.
No. No. No, this is just wrong. This is just wrong. And you know, this is why you finished the story. I didn't say a word. I didn't breathe a word about the story. I wouldn't even read. I was so dogmatic, but I wouldn't even read fan fictions about theorizing about the outside world before the outside world stuff was published. That's how dogmatic I was about it. If you were to read that essence story, and this little line does so much, and I use it a lot. I reference it a lot. Aaron says, "A past, present, and future exist at once," which is great because that line may seem very small and relevant, but that line is very, very important to understand the mechanics of attack tie-in, and it ties a lot of things up. So if the past, present, and future exist at once, okay, how do I explain this whole? This is going to be really heavy. Past, present, and future exist. Maybe I need to get my whiteboard again. Past, present, and future exist at once. That means the future is the past. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that the future has already happened. And now you're probably thinking it happened because of determinism, which is correct. This is how determinism works. If the future is already happened, or if the future has already been set out, then if someone can know the, I'm juggling 3 different areas. Okay, if past, present, and future exist at once, then that means that the past has already happened. Meaning, if the future has already happened, which is, a self-refuting statement, but for the sake of argument, the future has already happened, meaning chronological time is not a real thing, because the past, present, it just all exists in one state. Means that determinism must, by necessity, be true because the future has already happened. Therefore, someone who is bound to chronological time, to viewing time as chronological, the future is determined because it's already happened. I hope that makes sense. I don't have I don't have like fancy graphics. Regrettably, I don't have fancy graphics. I don't have like a whiteboard. So that's just the best way I can describe it. I'm very sorry. Just take it or leave it. I'll do it again. Past, present, and future exist at once. That means that chronological time, meaning that sequential sequences, don't exist. So let's say, it doesn't. It's not a thing that happens in actuality. All events occur at one time, and from the perspective of the characters at EOT, besides Aaron, they view it as happening chronologically. But that's arbitrary. That's an arbitrary way to view it. And so the future has already happened. Therefore, determinism is true by necessity. If determinism is true by necessity, Aaron cannot change past events. This is a very complicated way, a very crude way of me saying. This is a very crude way of me saying Aaron cannot influence past events because I'm not only using determinism, I'm using this line 139 as proof that past, present, future exist at once. I'm using that line as proof you cannot change the future because if the past, present, future exist at once, Aaron's fall has already been manipulated. The consequences of that event has already happened, and everything that will happen has already happened. Meaning, Aaron cannot go back and rechange events. That's what I'm saying. Sorry, it's a very, very complicated way of saying that. This is serious business. And so the reason why I'm saying this is I'm saying no, this guy is wrong. Aaron cannot influence past events. Okay, hope it makes sense.
Again, prior scenes could take on new meanings. The emotions I had previously felt in the interpretation.
Again, it's emotions. Stop talking about your emotions. Leave it to you. And people say. I remember I just recently made a Twitter thread about a cosplay, and people are saying, "Oh, this is the most accurate Mikasa cosplay ever." And I made a Twitter thread saying, "No, this is nowhere near accurate at all. It's like laughably inaccurate. I couldn't make a more inaccurate cosplay if I wanted to." And people were like, "Why are you so boring?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of am a buzzkill." But just to clarify, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be emotional with AOT. Just last night, I was reading new. I was going through new scenes. I was going through my old scenes. I actually rewatched part of the ending last night. Listened to some of the songs. In fact, Perfect Shots or Amazing Shots, the YouTube channel. They made a video about AOT. And then I loved that video. Watched it a billion times. And they made a second one. I watched it. I was like, oh, they made a second one. I'm like, oh, I'm believing I didn't see this before. I watched it again. So I'm very much about AOT. I'm not saying you should be emotional. I'm saying your emotions are not relevant to criticizing stuff. Okay? If we're having a conversation about, if we're just around the table having a conversation about why I like AOT, and I've had conversations like these, so we're just like, yeah, I like this, I like this, I like that, I like this. Okay, great, like that's fine. But this person is saying Attack on Titan lost its way and is making objective claims. Okay, he's saying the show is bad, this is bad, AOT lost its way. This is a critique. So if you are making a critique video, you are now ceding ground that things are subjective. Okay, because when people say art is subjective, no one actually believes art is subjective. If people actually believe art was subjective, they would never make a critique video ever in their lives. That's why I respect the hell out of people like Saint, because Saint is like, hell no, this is objectively bad. You're objectively wrong. Okay, I respect that. Good. Because you have these other people with different persuasions who are like, well, art is subjective, but this was, this was bad, this was critique, this goes against the themes of the story, this was a plot hole. Okay, so is art subjective or not? Because the hallmark, the poster child for something being subjective is X is a better color than X, right? So someone says, oh, blue's better color than green. Oh, okay, great. Blue's better color than green. Excellent. No one makes a critique video being like, this is why blue is a better color than green. Beauty. Oh, this one's more beautiful than this one. Oh, okay. No one makes a video. No one who thinks beauty is subjective makes a video saying, but this is actually why she's ugly. Ridiculous. No. The second, again, people think I'm a buzzkill, but the problem is that it's the second that you make a video positing that there's critiques, you're now saying quality exists. And quality exists independent of one's own experiences, which is why Tom Cruise, I may have a bunch of subjective feelings about Tom Cruise, but if I were to say to you, well, my bias is a factor whether or not Tom Cruise is a good actor or not, you'd be like, what? No, it's not. No. And this is what happens. Some people say like, oh, well, actually, art's subjective. And then they start bringing their subjective opinions into it. They say, this is subjective. You're like, oh, actually, art's subjective. Okay, no. You cannot make a critique video and then say art is subjective, because you're making a critique video. You're saying, you're making a critique video and you're saying, these are things that the story did wrong, and this means quality exists. And if quality exists, it's objective. Sorry. So, again, I love people who are emotional about AOT. I actually enjoy that. I'm very, very happy that AOT is a very good emotional experience with people. I get very, very, very emotional about AOT. More than anything else. Okay, watch my video when it happened right after it ended. Okay, I was very emotional. However, I explicitly did not make a full review of it after I watched it. I waited until I was in a clearer head, and then I made the video. 2 weeks after. Okay, let's continue.
I had grown attached to, they could be undermined. And what if the next time it wasn't so successful? At the time, I brushed these concerns aside though, because while I could sit here questioning things, I had trust in the story. So I decided to roll with the punches, give it good faith, and just believe in the process. Like, sure, I could question whether maybe Aaron would have gone back to save his other friends or his mom, but there would probably...
I'm glad I bring this up, because whenever I argue about the Dine Twist, people are like, well, the Dine Twist opens the whole can of worms about how come we couldn't go back and save his other? How come we couldn't go back and do all this other stuff? I'm like, well, you weren't saying that on 121. You weren't saying you were slurping that up. This guy's like, he had this problem with 121, so I respect that. I very much respect that. But for those of you who are watching, the same reason why Aaron didn't go back and save his friends or save his mom with the dino twist is the same reason he didn't do it in 121, is that he can't.
Probably be a good explanation for this. Heck, maybe even the explanation was right in front of my face, and this was a one-time event
Well, there was a good explanation for it, I guess. I just said 129.
only made possible by Aaron and Zeke touching, Aaron sharing Grisha's memories, and the power of paths. If that had been the case, I would purely be singing this scene's praises like anyone else. But, of course, that isn't what happened. Instead, the Attack Titan's hidden abilities related to the past and the future would go on to shape the rest of the story's narrative, undermining so much of what I had grown to love about it in the first place.
See, I love about it. I don't know when this. I felt these emotions. Again, I hate to belabor the point. This is just this. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want you to bring up anytime the words that I or emotions get brought up, it's an irrelevant argument. So this has just been a 20-minute yapping session of nothing, just vapid nonsense.
As far as I'm concerned, the final chapter of Attack on Titan is easily the worst of its entire run. An uneven, sloppy mess that attempts to twist, recontextualize, and elevate all past material, but instead
Was this published
only makes the story
a month
worse.
ago?
However, it's not as though everything leading up to this was perfect. No, there were plenty of nagging issues that slowly chipped away at my enjoyment
This is
of
my
the story.
enjoyment of the story. Like, this is not. He says issues, guys. He says nagging issues. Okay, so they're issues. They're objectively bad. Then he says my enjoyment, which is completely subjective. No one cares about your enjoyment.
Story. But most of these were relatively
Sorry,
minor,
yeah,
things where if I had loved the ending, I probably would have been willing to look past them or see them in a different light when I went back. Instead though, the ending brought these flaws to the forefront, and I found myself focusing on them more than ever before. For example, following the rumbling, I was left with the feeling that, at times, things were just too easy for our heroes, like Armin and Connie just happening to run into Annie, which is the only thing that allows them to join forces against Eren, or Falco turning into a bird titan and saving the gang just in the nick of time, or the very fact that this massive horde of titan shifters just generally didn't feel like as much of a threat as I would have expected. And instead of letting these exist as problems I had, the ending spends some time explaining them, implicitly justifying prior issues by revealing them to be hints of a twist. See, my feeling
Well, no, if you would have read 133, which happened before this, Aaron said no wants to be stopped. So you don't even need the ending to bail you out. You have 133, which is right there.
Things were sometimes too easy for the heroes here. Well, it was too easy for them, because they didn't really win due to their own strength. Instead, Eren let them so that they would look like heroes to the rest of the
more lack of reading comprehension, which I would forgive if this was the chapter, because when the chapter first released in April, it was a nightmare. When Mikasa's character was destroyed, I mean, it was an absolute nightmare when it first got released. The Ymir thing was unexplained. It was horrible. It wasn't horrible because of Isayama. It was horrible because of Kodansha in Betsu Shonen magazine, who gave him the page limit. You saw what happened once he was able to cook. This was released a month ago, so you know. So Shigeki Fly already came out. Well, I guess he didn't have it. I guess he didn't have Shigeki Fly at that point. But you already know what the actual final chapter looks like. So you know what Eren's motivations are. Eren was not trying to make them hero. The fact that people can actually sit down and read 139 or watch the final episode and come away thinking, yeah, Aaron's plan was to get his friends to kill him so they would look like heroes. That is not what happened. That was God.
Of the world. Already, this left me annoyed. Like, I had spent a good deal of time thinking about these chapters and plot lines, and even if some of it felt forced, I still enjoyed many of the victories these characters earned. For example, I really liked Armin's heartfelt speech to Zeke about the meaning of life, and how it inspired past Titan shifters to break free from Eren's control and fight for themselves. Except, maybe they didn't break free. Maybe this wasn't because of Armin. Maybe Eren simply allowed it. And that goes for all the struggles they faced in this battle.
As Invader so wonderfully pointed out, first off, you're just not understanding the story, which is fucking fine because Path is very not very elaborated on. Ymir let them out because Ymir was the one who was hearing the conversation. That's why she lets them out. Okay, which is why they stopped fighting, and which is why the rumbling stopped. That's why the rumbling stops afterwards. Because Ymir because Ymir realizes the value in life because Ymir has been killing people for 2,000 years. So I mean, it's just like, I mean, could you imagine like killing people for 2,000 years? She just completely, she was already upset with humanity beforehand because she saw, the worst of humanity with King Fritz and the Elden Empire. And so, you know, that's why the Rumbling stops. That's why the Titans help them. That's why this happens because Ymir is hearing Armin talk. And I'm not going to fault you for not getting that. That was, it's very implicit. It's very implied. The separation of powers between paths and between Eren and Ymir is kind of complex. But that's just. I hope that helps.
Battle. The whole thing was a facade, a pretend conflict that was always going to result in a victory for our heroes, regardless of any decisions they made.
No, you're just wrong. Okay. Looks like we need a due lesson in compatibilism, which I cannot believe I'm explaining this in 2024. No, that's all I got. I mean, this is complex stuff, and I explain it a lot to the same people. So, okay, so compatibilism. So for those of you who don't know, so compatibilism, I think I've had a great analogy to really show what compatibilism is. Say you go to the ice cream store. There's an ice cream store across around the corner. You go there, you always order vanilla. And then you go there and you're walking by at closing time, and you see that the all the other flavors that the ice cream parlor had out in front, and you always point to the vanilla. The attendant always gave you vanilla. All the other flavors are actually fake flavors. They're display flavors. They're not actually real flavors. The only flavor that this ice cream store sells is vanilla. You thought there was butterscotch and mint chocolate chip and Rocky Road and all this other stuff. You thought it was all there, but it was just fake. So at that point, it feels like your free will is violated because the illusion of quote unquote free will was taken away. But you made a free decision to choose the vanilla. You were always going to choose the vanilla. And this, again, I said I watched the final episode last night, about 12 hours ago. So I'm actually a very clear memory of this. Eren says to Armin, "I'm an idiot." He says, this all played out in my future memories. It's always happened over and over again. My character changes, always memories. He goes on. Armin says, it's been determined. Didn't you determine it? Can't you undetermine it? Then Eren goes on and says, I'm an idiot who got power. Again, power, as in he's the one who's doing this, and he's a slave to fate, a slave to compatibilism, a slave to determinism. He's doing it. I was an idiot who got power. That's why this was the only possible option. So Eren's nature made the only possible option. So when this whole thing comes up about determinism or in the final battle, when he says that it would have happened no matter what they did, you're wrong. The reason why this happened is because of what they did. The nature of Mikasa, the nature of Flock, the nature of Hanji, the nature of Ermin, the nature of Zeke, all these pieces led to this outcome. It wasn't, no matter what they did, the outcome was determined. This is really just a flawed way of looking at life, or just time in general. It's very ends based. It's very this certain event was determined to happen. No, it's every single individual action that leads to the event. So every single individual action, we're just taking everyone's own free will. It was a free decision from everyone. That led to that outcome. Their nature made it the only possible outcome. And I'm quoting this directly from the book itself. This is a quote from Eren Yeager in 139. So this is not even my own speculation. This is what Eren himself says. So no, you're wrong. Whatever they would have chose would have ended this way. You're completely wrong. The only reason why it ended this way is because of the nature of the people in the Alliance.
And that's just such a weak conflict.
Oh my god. And again, that's what I'm talking about, the spine-tickling nonsense. It's a weak conflict. Shh. What is a weak conflict? I'm not going to get into that whole thing. But the fact of the matter is that, yes, it's much different than the 51st Expedition. It's much different than Return to Shiganshi. It's much different than all that. It's not a real conflict where two sides are trying to kill each other. And it wouldn't be the other way, because if Aaron's actually trying to kill these people, they would already be dead. They would already be done away with, because Aaron controls everything, okay? If he wants to put them asleep, he could put them asleep immediately. He could crash them. Well, upon LD, but he could do whatever you want with these people. And again, Orman explicitly says this in 133. Orman explicitly brings this up. So it's like authors are not aware. That's like Aaron's not aware of this. This gets brought up in 133. So yes, it's not a confidence in like, oh, raw, yeah, epic final battle, oh, swords clanging and explosions going. Like, come on, like, stop this. Stop being a child. Like, this is the thing. Like, this is what children care about this kind of stuff. Adults care about the actual meaningfulness of it. But a lot of people with this battle, they act like children. They're like, oh, what cool fight scenes? Okay, there's grander things in life than cool fight scenes. Okay, please. All right, let's continue.
And yet, Aaron didn't totally let them win, because while he allowed them the finishing blow, he still saw most of the rumbling through. He still wiped out 80% of the world's population.
Amazon is overcharging you, but I can show you how to avoid it. Don't spend another dime on Amazon.
When Aaron began the rumbling, I wholeheartely believed he had every intention of flattening the entire Earth.
Yeah, and if you read the manga, if you watched the final episode, that you would know that that is correct. Aaron did intend to destroy the Earth. He said this explicitly. Why are we having these conversations? This is 2024. Why are we having these conversations? We have conversations for 3 years. For 3 years. Well, why? Why is this still happening? Why after? Why are we still having? Oh, God, I feel like
His hatred of any who would stifle his or his friend's freedom, his disappointment in seeing an outside world just as violent as the world within the walls, his comrades' inability to come up with another plan. All of it came together to make Aaron's decision believable and, just as importantly, compelling.
This is right here. Believable. And then he says something that's objective. And then he says, more, just importantly, compelling. Compelling's not a real thing. It only exists within the viewer. It's not an actual thing.
Because Aaron didn't become this on his own, did he? No, he was pushed to this point. As his people's only hope and the ultimate weapon, he needed to succeed.
No.
And so, when backed into a corner, when made to feel as desperate as possible, he became what Levi and the others hoped he would. Someone.
This is just a massive misunderstanding of the story. I mean, you didn't read 131, you didn't read 100, you didn't read the internet. Like I don't know where. I mean, I would assume. I guess they hang out in. Maybe I really do. I need to add more. I mean, I talk to NN hitters every day, and I just assume this would be common knowledge. I guess the NN hitters I talk to are more intelligent than I give them credit for. But this is just ridiculous. Like Aaron did not do the rumbling to say parody primarily at all. Like that was like his very last motivation. Like this is not something that was terribly important. It was important to him, but it wasn't like terribly important to him. There were things that were grander than this, and there were things that he mentioned to Ramsey, and things that Isayama mentioned in interviews.
Someone who was truly capable of destroying all their enemies, but in a completely different context than they had ever imagined. And with that comes responsibility for them, too. I mean, they didn't know things would turn out this way, but they still put everything on Aaron. And so instead of becoming the hero who could fulfill all their dreams, he became the villain who would make their world a nightmare. In my mind, once Aaron did this, that had to be it. As much as his friends would want to believe he had other plans, that just didn't make sense anymore. He had done something that could never be taken back. In fact, it seemed the final, most brutal twist of Attack on Titan would be that Aaron's friends had to accept that there was no final twist. Aaron was a monster, and that was simply that.
Yep. Yeah. And that's how the manga ends. And again, I give you leeway in the manga. The manga was sloppy. No doubt about that. No one disagrees with that. Well, some people do, but no, it was sloppy for sure. It was rushed because of Best of Show magazine, not because of Isayama. So I give you leeway, but again, this was published a month ago. So you had ample opportunity to watch the anime, and it explains this explicitly.
So,
and speaking of Aaron doing the rumbling, someone asked Isayama what Aaron meant when he said humanity was disappointed, and he says, "Was he disappointed?" Yeah. Hold on. Yes. So the guy says, at what point was he really disappointed? I thought it was after he read Grish's notebooks, meaning I thought it was after he learned about the oppression of the alien people. And then he says, But then he ended up bringing too much into it when he literally said when humanity survived or humanity existed. So the reader's asking him, am I reading? Is this way? Did Aaron literally mean when I realized that humanity was outside the walls, or did he mean when he read Grish's notebooks and heard about the oppression of the alien people? And what does Isayama say? Again, I really needed to read this interview because a lot of people will gaslight you, they'll lie to you, and they'll read the second and third part out of context. The first thing Isayama says to answer his question is, it's that he wanted to believe that out there somehow there was something vast waiting that no one knew about yet. Okay, which coincidentally is how 131 ends. Curious. Why does 131 end like that? 131 ends like that with Armored Saint. I want to believe there's something some bastard don't know about outside the walls. With Aaron suspended with puppet strings and his eyes are closed. So again, this whole nonsense about Aaron being backed into a court and he had to do the rumbling to save his country is just nonsense. You just plain and simple, you don't understand the story.
So when it's revealed that Aaron allowed it to stop 80% in, well...
Okay, this is kind of confusing. So I'll give you leeway. Aaron didn't, and this is why every line on 139 is boring. Every line ties it up. Aaron goes to destroy humanity. He goes to destroy the world. He wants the Alliance to stop him. He allows the Alliance. He sends his friends. I actually use the active. He doesn't allow. He sends them. He sends Mikasa, sends the Alliance to kill him, to stop him. He's going for 100. The Alliance kills him. The Alliance kills him after 80% is killed. Not Aaron was like, oh, okay, it's 80%. All right, Mikasa, come on down. Oh, it's 80%. Okay, I'm going to stop right here. Oh, okay. No, what happens is the 80% happens. It just so happens when Mikasa kills him. And that's, he just uses the time. Like, X amount of hours pass. So, that's how much, that's how I know it's 80%. Right. So again, this is a bit confusing in the manga. And this is kind of, it's not, if you actually read every line, it's not that confusing in the new 139, but whatever.
I'm confused. How could he possibly rationalize this? If he wanted to lift his friends up as heroes, shouldn't he maybe let them stop him earlier?
So true. This, I agree with you. I agree with you there, buddy. Which is why, Aaron did. Again, like if you read the line, Aaron's and I brought this up with the debate in Saint Chief. I was like, okay, well, he said he would continue doing the rumbling if his friends didn't stop him. So if he would continue doing the rumbling after his friends stop him, why are you saying that he was doing this so that his friends could be heroes? And again, the anime just makes this much more clear. You have no excuse, you have no leeway. The anime makes this explicitly clear.
By all accounts, he's condemned them to a life of fighting against people who will no doubt fear them more because of what he did. After this, when I go back and read everything following Attack on Titan's big time skip, the material is just less interesting.
He uses these words. When I go back, when I read it, it's less interesting. None of that is relevant.
Where before I saw a version of Aaron who was a villainous culmination of all his prior flaws, the choices he had made, and the terrible world he had seen, now there's something.
That's what he is. No. All his flaws, from his resentment, his bitterness, his discontentment, and way back when in chapter 1, gets exasperated all the way through when he obtains a founder. And I was like, okay, I'm still not happy. And I really do like that he brought this up about the outside world being just as cruel as it. That's a great way to put it. He goes, and it's not even because, again, girls get fed to dogs, in this world, right? This is not something that's unique to Eldians. It's not an Eldian thing. This is just a human nature thing. So he sees the outside world. Also, Titans are, not anymore, but he sees the inside the walls. They're trapped. His mom dies. They get massacred briefly, and I do mean briefly because I need people to remember the Titans were not killing people just left and right. The Titans were not really slaughtering civilians. This happened one. It was massive. That's true. It was massive. It was massive. It was. but it only killed 250,000 people. And the reason why I'm saying it only killed 250,000 people is because in this world there's been genocides of people of much greater proportions to a bunch of different ethnicities. This is not like an alien thing. So they lived in peace. No civilians were getting killed by Titans. This is not a thing that was happening. Briefly, briefly, 250,000 people die. And then they go. No one gets killed by no one gets killed by Titans anymore. And then he goes onto the walls. And then now everyone's suffering. Now there's a bunch of suffering all over the world. And so he realized that the outside world is not a paradise. He's just going into the same world. That's really the problem. That's really the problem. He's going into the same world that he left. The world outside the walls is cruel and wicked, and there's a whole bunch of suffering and evil. Then he stepped outside, suffering evil, not particularly the oppression, suffering evil in general. That's why it starts rumbling. And the fact that he could not be content, the fact that he was bitter about it beforehand, now he steps into the real world. Now it's even worse. Then, on top of that, as a separate thing, on top of that, then there's the yielding and oppression issue. That's when he decides to do the rumbling. Okay, which is why Armin said he felt the same way as well for that same reason. And so you're right. You're absolutely right. And good stars will do this. You take a character, and it happens to Mikasa too. Same thing happens to Mikasa. Her flaws were she had a flaw. She was a slave to Eren. She was a slave to Levin, I want to say. And it gets expressed as little things. First, she just gets headbutted because she almost, disobeys the chain of command. Then she shorts her comrades because Eren died. Then Captain Levi gets injured, which leads to Sheena getting destroyed. And then now she's killing civilians in Liberia, and then she's ready to stop the rumbling. So her is masterful. This will always happen in real life, which is why it's important to put in fiction. With these small flaws, like they're small at first, and then they become these massive things down the road. This is why, Akuma no Ko, he's a child of evil. So this is why, I remember my father he was like, people laugh when a kid lies. He steals and he lies, and he has he steals from the cookie jar, and he's just crumbs all over his face, and he's like, no, mom, no, mom, I didn't take the cookies. What do you mean? No, I didn't take the cookies, and just chucked it all over his face. And my dad's like, oh, that's not something that's funny. It's funny because it's harmless, but that's a person. That's a person that behavior continues. That person who's gonna, rob people, mug people, whatever, and then be deceptive and manipulative. It's only he's the same person. He just has he's just more sophisticated. It's more power, which is exactly why Eren says. That's exactly why Eren says I'm an idiot, because Akuma no Ko is a child. That's why he's a child in 131. He throws a temper tantrum. The fact of the matter is that he's the same exact person. I'm just gonna headcanon this. Who threw a tantrum on the floor because his mom took away his toy, or whatever. Is this because he wanted the toy and he could not countenance the fact that the world is not how he wanted it to be. He wanted the toy, couldn't get the toy. He could not countenance the fact that he didn't have his toy when he wanted it. It's the same exact Eren, with much more complex, nuanced reasons, much more reasonable. Sure, you could say it's the same Eren, who instead of just being a little baby with little arms and little feet, now has the power of the Armageddon in his hands. Is the same person who initiates the rumbling, which is why I see some ABU got power. So no, you're exactly right. Eren's character flaw, everyone's character flaws, the culmination of their little character flaws did culminate in the ending. Some people like Erwin and Mikasa, they overcame it. Some people like Kenny and that's actually no. Some people like Erwin and Mikasa and Kenny, they overcame it, but other people like Eren did not overcome it, and that's just what happened.
Nothing else. A confused, half-hearted character who, despite being placed into the role of villain, is really just waiting nearly 50 chapters before he can reveal his deeper plan, no matter how irrational that plan is.
Ridiculous.
And so, the twist has only weakened this arc, an arc I have spent about a third of the story getting invested in. However, this is far from the only twist at the end of Attack on Titan, and definitely not the only
reading comprehension.
Because he manages to achieve his goal from the very start of the series. He manages to rid the world of the curse of the Titans.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth with this. This is very interesting. They'll give up on your dreams and die. This happens with, which is a theme and it's a theme specifically with flawed characters, not Armin, but flawed characters who they had a dream, which was, and again, this is very different than just give up on your dreams and die, because it's unrealistic, because Zeke Armin explicitly says the opposite to Zeke. So that's not the message. The message is people who have vain dreams, people who have self-destructive dreams, give up on that and then do something greater. And unfortunately for the characters who have these flaws, who have vain dreams, they have to die. They have to pay. They die, but they die in freedom. So Erwin, right? He gave up on his dream and seen his father's basement, but he was truly free when he was leading those soldiers in, because he was free to be who he was, which is a leader. And he could not be the best leader he could be because his vain dream was holding him back. Once Levi said, "Give up your dream and die," that's why he smiles and he thanks him, because now he can be who he truly is, which is a leader. And so, he's going to die, but he's going to die a free man. Kenny wanted compassion, right? And he was vain. Again, notice the theme here. Erwin couldn't reach the basement. Kenny couldn't. He wanted to be compassionate, so he wanted to have the Defiant Titan. He couldn't get the Defiant Titan. He couldn't get his dream, so he gave up on that, and he had the Titan serum, and he had to die because he needed the serum. But he gave the Titan serum to Levi, a free man. And so now we turn to Aaron. This is a very, very interesting. This is like the last thing I need to figure out. Did Aaron do this? Would Aaron die free like Kenny and Erwin? And he brings this up, like he. I'm glad he brought this up because he wants to get rid of the world Titans. He wants to get rid of the Titans and sprint a single one, not sprint a single one over and over again, and then he did, but he had to die to do it. So it's very interesting. So it kind of follows the same pattern with Kenny and Erwin and whatnot. I wonder it's more complicated with Erwin. Very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Especially with the new edition with the shell and the anime. Just some food for thought.
So, how exactly did he do that? Well, he forced Mikasa into a situation where she would need to kill him to save her.
Also, I'm glad he brings it up. He did force Mikasa into a situation. Ymir and Eren systematically take out people. First, Armin gets taken out in 135 because Armin resolves to kill Eren, so Ymir swallows Armin up. And then the gas comes, and of course, Mikasa's an Ackerman, she's not affected by the gas, which honestly, God, knowing Isayama, that may have been why the Ackermans are unaffected, just for that purpose alone. Who knows? I should ask him that if I ever get a chance to. So the gas doesn't affect Mikasa or Levi. Levi's injured. Again, notice this. Levi's injured. All the gas is there. So there's no one else left but Mikasa. And yeah, you're right. She was not gonna kill him, but she absolutely has to. Absolutely has to. We have Annie saying, "Oh, don't worry, you'll take care of this. I'll take care of Eren." We have Levi. And this is why Levi says, "We want to kill Eren. Like, come on, Mikasa. We want to kill Eren." So I'm glad it brings this up, and the reason why it's important that he brings this up is because, again, this is intentional on Ymir and Eren's part to get Mikasa to kill him. This is not a traditional battle where it's like, "Oh, we're gonna fight to the death, epic battle at sunset. We were at dawn." This is a very, very meaningful battle in the sense that it has great themes that are relatable and applicable. It was a good catch. He did force Mikasa to kill him.
Save the world. And when Ymir saw this, when she saw Mikasa kill the man she loved, it inspired her to break free from her own twisted love of King Fritz, thus erasing the Titan curse. And, I've got a problem with this. A big one.
Let me guess. Ymir was supposed to be free in 120 to 121. Oh.
Eren and Mikasa's relationship.
I'm gonna kill myself. Oh my god. Stop myself.
The recontextualization of this scene and the way it haunts Mikasa is one of my favorite things about this final stretch of the story. It was always just as horrifying as it was heroic. The fact that this child was emotionally capable of murder. In fact, the further the story goes, the more it becomes clear that this was the core of Eren's character all along.
Like, speaking of this, he called the sex traffickers, he called them animals disguised as humans. And then what does he say in 130 when he's killing the innocent people in the rumbling? "I'll destroy them." That's one of those animals that are on this earth.
Well, to Mikasa, it showed her how she could fight for herself, gave her the strength to live. It also should have shown her that he was a person capable of shocking violence. Of course, though, she didn't.
And, well, that and multifaceted motivations. Which is why this memory gets more sinister as the story progresses, as he mentioned. Because you originally think, oh, it's just doing this for Mikasa, but then the story progresses. It's like, well, maybe it wasn't actually, just for Mikasa. Maybe there's something else going on there. I'm not going to elaborate. This is a very controversial subject. People get mad. It's more implicit, and again, my thing is, stories have a very implicit nature to them. It's not a textbook, so if you want to miss on the implicit stuff, that is your loss. If you want to just be very literal, I feel sorry for you. You're missing out on so much, but I'm not going to waste my time trying to argue this with people. So I'll just leave it at that. Take it or leave it.
Didn't see the potential darkness in this act. And why would she?
Okay, Base.
He had saved
Base, he's doing
her
good.
life. Yet, as the conflict grows more complex and his actions unforgivable, her perspective on the scene is brought into question.
Yeah.
And it's clear that it tortures her because she loves Eren. She's always wanted to be with him. So does this red scarf around her neck symbolize the way he protected her? Or does it symbolize the blood left in his wake? And as she learns more about the Ackerman clan's
That's a poetic line. That's a good line. These
past,
so far.
as Eren claims that they're drawn to protect their host by a biological instinct they can't shake, rather than her own care for him. Well, she begins to question everything about her own motives and feelings, to question if she even has free will. For her, that's why killing Eren represents breaking free from the chains of twisted love. And this all sounds good. And it is. I care about and understand Mikasa's side of this. However, there's another equally important side I don't care about the same way. Eren's. Because honestly, I didn't know.
God. Oh my god.
Oh, Eren reciprocated these feelings. Like, obviously I knew he cared about her, but I didn't know he loved her romantically.
I've been doing EM apologetics for years now, and I don't want to open up the whole can of worms again. Really, when it comes down to Eren, make a say Eren. When it comes down to Eren reciprocating Mikasa's feelings for him, yes, Eren loved it, but as I was explaining earlier, he was so wrapped up with fine Titans and being bitter and all that stuff, he didn't really show it a lot. That's really the best. That's really the message of it. And it's the same thing with Grisha. It's just Did you ever look at? And then we have much less material with Grisha. Did you ever look at Grisha in Fast Fast? Be like, oh yeah, I can point here, here, and here, and here that he loves his son. It's assumed he loves his son because it's his son, but you never see him do anything that's very loving, and you don't see him do anything because he's consumed with his goals. And then when it all comes to a head, then he breaks down. And he shows he loves Zeke. Same thing with Eren. You don't really see it. Like it's there, but you don't really see it. And then when it all comes to a head, then you finally see he loves Mikasa. So that's the way I put it. Again, you can like it or not like it, but that's the way that I see it. And I think, at least I think it's pretty good.
In fact, I thought this moment where Mikasa went in for a smooch and he vowed to protect her kind of confirmed otherwise. He was saying,
this is hilarious to me. It's hilarious to me because people keep saying, oh, she was going in for a kiss. I just recently, when I say recently, like 2 years ago, I watched this scene a billion times. I never, ever, ever heard of she was going in for a kiss, ever. And Eren's always been portrayed as a dense person, and so, like, I couldn't imagine people interpret people. And so I say, reading conference is very important. People can interpret the scene as Eren rejecting her kiss, which is certainly a way to view it. It's not entirely unreasonable way to view it, but I never viewed it that way. And I think that most people, especially given Eren and how dense Eren is, I think most people can realize that this is like he wasn't like rejecting her kiss. He was just trying to fight the Titans. I mean, he was trying to protect her. I mean, that's what was going on here. He was trying to protect her.
Saying like, just on that day before, he would always protect her. But that didn't mean this was also romantic, and we didn't follow up on any of that potential. I mean, Mikasa always looked like she was ready to slice a woman open if they dared speak with Eren for too long, which heavily implied she still had these feelings for him. But what about Eren's opinion of her? Save for one moment in chapter
save for 123.
23, they never talked about it again. So from chapter 50 through 123, that led me to believe that Eren had rejected her feelings.
And instead of saying that was my mistake, you go blame the author. This is my thing. Like, I think a lot of audiences, they're like spoiled brats. Like, they want to be pandered to and like taken care of. Like, you should be doing some work. Reading should be work. It should be laborious. It shouldn't be this thing where you're just like coasting back and you're just letting the book take you along. It's not like it's not like a roller coaster. It's more like a bike ride. The bike will help you for sure. Like, it will help you for sure. It'll get you faster there, but you have to put in the work into it. Like, it's not something where it's like you just like be in a car and just be like, oh, just like let her bring you. No, it's You have to put work in. Like reading is work. It takes skills. It takes a lot of skills. It takes paying attention. It takes a lot of rereading. It takes focus. It takes a lot of things. It's not so like it's okay to be. I've been wrong about a lot of things in the second time. I've been wrong about a ton of things. So for people to be like, for people to like to say this, to be like, yeah, I thought this, and then another thing happened. Instead of saying I was wrong, I misinterpreted this, which is very reasonable to say. Like, oh, I just saw this one way, and I could have seen another way. Like, complete perspective change. That was wrong. Now we're gonna go blame Yama, which is insanity. And the other thing is that the other thing is that there's people who actually had better reading comprehension who read this and were like, oh yeah, of course Aaron has feelings for her, and they had the proper interpretation of the story. So now, what is Isayama supposed to do? Because we have one side with that's saying, "Oh, yeah, this was great. This fit the narrative well. I understood it." You know, other people saying, "Oh no, I was literally another thing." Like, well, what is Isayama supposed to do? Like, he can't please anyone. He can't please anybody. Well, he can please everyone if audiences take more responsibility and stop expecting the author to do all the work for them.
If I'm wrong, I would have liked to see more about that and to have been given an opportunity to care more about them as a potential couple. In all honesty, I never even thought they had all that much chemistry together in any way, like as friends or potential partners. That's not to say this was a problem. He worked well enough as a sort of bratty sibling, frustrated with his sister's overprotective nature. But their dynamic rarely went all that far beyond that. It was fairly one note, but it also never got undue focus.
This is the other thing. This is what I'm going to make my romance video. This is just a lot of just like Western notebooks, like just sappy, like just like not anything that's actually important. Like just nothing about like about her being a wife or anything like that. This is relevant. Oh, the chemistry was off. It was one like come like just please please.
Until it becomes so instrumental to the very end of the series. So honestly, I don't have a problem with Aaron getting a pathetic moment like this. I'm fine with a bit of that
Very
desperate side of himself coming out here. My issue is that it's brought about by a romance.
Yeah.
I have little to no.
But again, I can say this again, and I'm glad you didn't bring up the Zeke thing. I mean, I didn't like the 1.1 twist, but I guess that's the thing about Zeke. I could say Christian never showed any affection towards Zeke. If he had any affection, I could have built up earlier. Now, so we get this giant emotional breakthrough, and you could say, well, but look, we have more material in Aaron Miko. That's fine, more material in Aaron. That's fine, you have much more material in Aaron Miko. But the fact that matters is it still doesn't change anything. You're saying we should have seen more investment, and then the emotional breakthrough should happen. We don't get that investment with Aaron and Zeke. Here's the problem. It's assumed that Christian likes Zeke. It's assumed, therefore it works. That's the whole problem. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm saying the problem is not the investment. Your issue is not the investment the relationship got. Because if the problem was the investment the relationship got, then you would be upset about Christian and Zeke. But you're not upset about Christian and Zeke, even though we got no investment in the relationship at all. We got Christian being mean to Zeke and all of a sudden flipping on a dime like that. But of course, we understand he had these feelings for Zeke because he's his son, so it's assumed. If you were to interpret these scenes correctly, you would assume that Aaron had feelings for Mikasa. This would all make sense. It's not about the investment; it's just about the faulty assumptions you made.
Investment in. But then there's one more side of this. Ymir's side.
Hi, we're Visible. We're the wireless company with nothing to hide. Seriously, hidden fees?
And this is fascinating to me. How could this girl love the man who did this to her? Just
God.
How? I mean, seriously, how?
I can't stand when grown adults like. I understand with children. Like I understand children not like getting this plot point, but people like actual grown adults who are upset about this baffles me. Like, have you guys not seen this happen? Like in real life? Like, have you guys like not seen this play out? I don't understand. Like this. Like this is like. I agree, it's horrible. It's horrible. But this is something that happens. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, something that happens. I remember this, and I will always repeat the story. I was watching AOT with my mother, almost 40 years old. A person with experience who's been around, and we're watching 121. First time watching 121. Memories of the Future, and she's trying to figure out why Ymir still served King Kretz, and she's like, this happened. Did she love him? She said. Again, this is before the finale was even aired. This is way back, she's watching Memories of the Future way back when, like 2021, 2022. And, well, it's 2023, I believe, actually. And she was like, wait, did she love him? Like, because, with not even a second thought. And so it seems very juvenile for a lot of people to be like, well, he treated her mean, So shouldn't she not love him? Like, guys, she had a dependency disorder, like issue with King Fritz. This is what happens. It's just this is what mental illness is. Like, it sucks. It's horrible. It's awful. And of course, it's not logical. But like, humans are not rational. Like, no one acts with rational thought or rationality the whole time. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, if people were actually rational, they wouldn't be such things as procrastinating. Like, this is not a like this seems almost as foolish to me as being like, well, you've got to get this project done. Why are you watching Netflix? This is not logical. Why would a character do this? It's not a logical decision. Like, you know to get this project done, but you're watching Netflix. Like, I don't understand. Like, I understand like kids. Like, I understand children to say that criticism. But like grown adults who have been in the world, like I would expect them to have a little bit more of a more sophisticated understanding of human nature than just this. This is like, I'm sorry. I have almost no sympathy for this at all. Like, people criticizing this just shows that they're young.
I would love to see it. I would love to get enough of her perspective to go, oh yeah, I get it now. But no, that doesn't happen. Instead, we get him torturing her and making her life hell, and I'm going to need more before I can buy into and believe she loved him, and more importantly, feel things about it other than confusion and annoyance. Really, all the emotional heavy lifting here is done by background details or broader concepts, like Ymir smiling here, or the concept of Stockholm syndrome or trauma.
Yeah, my wish list for the ending was more insight to Ymir, maybe more inner monologues. And I will say this: I've said a lot of bad things with this video. I don't think very highly of this video, but I will say, if you want to say that Ymir could have more inner monologues or more exploration, more explicit exploration, I can accept that. That's fine. I personally think it's fine. I personally like it. But if you say that you want more, if you say it's a bad thing about the story, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you. I wouldn't like, okay, man, that's fair. And it is fair. Yeah, that's just
Bonding just being a thing that I've heard of before, so I guess it could justify this. But as usual, the details are what matter. And we get so little of that with Ymir. Instead,
we
Aaron
get the kiss scene. We get the her getting the affection loop from him. We get the smiling. We get a lot of details. I mean, she never speaks a word ever. Like, at all. So I can see that. Like, I personally think it's fine, but if you want more, I think it's fair.
simply tells us what happened. And that's a lot less powerful than experiencing her change of heart for myself in a more dramatized way.
Yeah, fair
And
enough.
that's really the problem with a lot
This is probably the only thing. Fair enough. Like, okay, yeah, I can do with that.
of this. We don't get to see enough. For example, Aaron has conversations with most of the members of the hero crew, but we only get to see our
Dude, this guy's cooking.
The others-
I remember before the ending, I had the same thing. I said one more instant here, and I also said I wanted to see all those conversations, which was because in retrospect, after watching the episode, I was like, "Nah, this is fine." In retrospect, it's really just the episode. The chapter was so rushed that it needed more to fill it. But after watching the episode, I'm like, this would mess up the pacing. This is fine. We get this conversation with Mika. We get this conversation with Armin. Although this would never ever happen. Although it would be nice if he would have told Jean, "Yeah, go take care of Mika stuff. Go marry Mika. Don't take care of her for me." I remember Rachel Air Team made a fan fiction about that. He had that in there. Of course, that would have destroyed the fandom, and Isayama would never do that. And I think even one of the animators said that they weren't even like they said, "Oh, I don't think I'm allowed to say this," but like Jean's with Mika's son, the tree. And the way I interpret it, I may be wrong, but the way I interpret it is that like it's such a politically contentious hot button issue that like it would it would unnecessarily destroy the reputation of the story, because lots of the people who like the ending are also massive shippers who hate John Kissa for some reason. So that would never happen. I mean, this is the only real thing the real plot thing would be his conversation with John, but like that would never happen. So like you watching the episode in its entirety, like I can see the pacing. Yeah, it's fine to have the conversation out. But no, this is actually the more reasonable side of the video, and I actually agree with this. And I did agree with this before the ending aired. I was like, yeah, I think that I think I want this conversation. The other thing I said was I want weddings with guess who? John, Annie, Armin, Mikasa, the Falco, maybe Falco Gabby as well. So those are like the things that I want. Oh, of course, I want the extended Aaron Armin conversation, of course. But those are things that I wanted. But after watching the episodes, like this would just cramp the pacing. This is just fine. And there's really no. Of course, he's not going to show Mikasa and Jean because that's going to just he's purposely avoiding that. So looking back now in retrospect, the ending fixed everything to fix and kept everything it needs to keep.
simply have a panel or two reacting to whatever he said to them, and that's that. And because they only get such a brief response, I'm left distant from
Again, more with these emotions. We don't care about your emotions, bro. Like, stop with your
their emotions at the very end of the
Stop it.
story. Key points of their perspective skimmed over, and since what we from them, to me, feels like a relatively positive response to his actions, I'm left even more confused. They wanted to stop the rumbling, didn't they? Well, sure, I guess they did, but 80% is still gone. If I were them, I would be horrified and angry that he had done this, confused why he would think this would help them become heroes, enraged that this idiot somehow thought this was worth it. But I could be convinced.
You see this? Okay, a couple things. Number one, they were all angry. They all killed him. I understand. Like, they killed him. So I don't understand this. Like, people say, "Oh, well, they're minimizing the rumble. They killed him." I don't understand this at all. They killed him. I think like Armin did do that. Armin grabbed his collar and said, "What are you doing? What is wrong with you?" I mean, Armin punched him. Like, it's just, like these are his friends. I keep having to go back to this example of like a parent punishing a child. Like, if a parent punishes a child, uh, they obviously they punish them, they're angry at them, but then after they're like, they hug them, they're all good, they say affectionate things towards them, and no one's like, well, actually, mom, wait a second, hold on, your child just bullied Mr. McGillicuddy, so actually, you should be angry at your child and horrified. Now, obviously, those are not comparable. Global genocide and bullying Mr. McGillicuddy, he probably deserved it with those pants of his and those red hairline, but um, the principle I'm trying to say is that you expect affection and compassion from people who are close to each other. It's altogether fitting and altogether right that people show compassion and affection to people they love. That's perfectly fine. And especially after they killed him. Like they killed him, the work is done. They've already expressed their anger. They already grabbed him. They already shoot him out. And so now it's time for affection. It's like the absolute lack of nuance to be like, well, they have to just be condemning him from start to finish, or else they're minimizing the rumbling. No, they can have complex, nuanced emotions. There are people who love him, people who care about him, people who've known him. I mean, I never went to college, so I don't have this experience, but I've a similar experience. Like people went to college with. Like, these are people who spent 4 or 5 years together, knowing each other, living with each other. Like they mentioned this and I didn't really understand it. The words couldn't give. I didn't really understand it until I actually experienced it myself. Now I understand what he means when they say we live with each other, we eat with each other. Like, I understand that now. Like, these are people who are very close, and so I don't understand why it's improper for them after they killed him to have this sentiment. And again, the second thing is that he's saying, well, I could have been convinced if the author would have done more stuff. Again, more of this passive, like, you just lack responsibility. You're just laying back and letting the story ride you. Let the story ride you. No, you have to put in work. Like, the bicycle should ride you. Like, we were pedaling at the wheels will spin, and if you run on a hill, the hill will take you. But you have to put in work. You have to put in work in this. This is such a strange concept nowadays. And I'm always going to blame Marvel. I don't really know where the decline came from, but there's just strange concept here in the modern West where we just expect stories to do this for us. We're obsessed with like super realistic mechanics. Everyone's like, well, how did this happen? Hey, how's this realistic? How's this realistic? Those are not relevant things at all. Those have never been relevant things in fiction for hundreds of years. Now it's suddenly relevant. Now symbolism has always been very abstract, and no one's been like, "Oh, how did this happen? How did this happen? How did this mechanic happen?" And now we're here. Now we're like, audiences just expect to just get lulled to sleep and lulled around, and not take any responsibility whatsoever. Like, no, this is a two-way system. You're an active participant. You have to put in work, and you'll get things out of it. You'll put in, you'll get out. Like the old military saying, if you take care of your gear, I'll take care of you. Like, you don't just expect, you just get, pull your gun out of your dusty bag and, expect it to fire. Like, yeah, the gun will fire for you. Like, it will fire for you. Like, you don't have to go up there and like put the bullet in the guy yourself. It will work for you. We have to put in work to it.
That they would react this way if I, saw anything about their conversations here. A big part of this is tone, which can be so hard to quantify.
Very
Just
true.
how these little
We're stepping into very dicey territory. Very dicey territory when we talk about tone. So yeah, it's always complex to watch, navigate, but yeah, let's see how he does it.
little moments and nuances add up to create something that works perfectly fine for some and feels off to others.
Exactly, and this is the problem. This is why I always try to get things down to a mathematical formula. Because it's like you're saying these are issues of the ending, Isayama should have changed something. The problem is people already liked it. So if he changed it, then other people will say, well, I don't like it. It should be changed. So you have to bring a valid, non-arbitrary, objective reason to say, nope, you're wrong. This is why I should stay. And that's why I come off as like very dogmatic and very aggressive, because this is the only way we can live in truth. Because if you're saying there's an issue with something, if someone says there's not an issue with it, unless you believe that quality doesn't exist, then you have to say, nope, you're wrong. You're just wrong. You're wrong, and this is why you're wrong. It has to be an objective measure. So let's go through it like this. Let's see how it goes.
And when I read this, I got the sense that the tone was supposed to be tragic, but also Eren was being framed as something of a hero, especially with how his friends.
Oh my god, I can't stand this. I can't stand this nonsense. I can't. I'm gonna finish what he says, and then I'm gonna
reacted, but I can't see anything remotely heroic in him anymore. Because 80% of the world is gone. The Jaegerists are going to cause problems. Hanji and so many more of their comrades are dead, and the remaining countries are definitely going to want to see the rest of them dead. This is almost the furthest thing from a victory. And the tone here feels more akin to an action.
So he's showing clips in the anime, which means I'm assuming he's watched the anime, which is why I'm confused why he's using the manga page. I can understand, like, you edited something before the ending came out. I can understand that, but like, you're using the anime stuff, and you've obviously put this in the post. Like, I don't understand when there's no edits
blockbuster than the horror I would have expected. And even Armin's conversation with Eren, which we get a lot of stuff about, doesn't really work for me. At times, it comes across like we're going through a checklist of plot points Eren needs to discuss so the story can make sense, so the plot can be revealed. So when Armin says, thank you, you became...
Again, like, this line was changed in the... I agree with all this. I agree with the mass murder stuff. To an extent, I agree with the mass murderer line. But I'm just very confused. Like, he's obviously seen the anime. He's bringing the anime scenes into it. Why is he going on with this? It's very strange to me.
A mass murder.
It almost seems disingenuous, and I don't think it's disingenuous. I think he wrote this before the ending aired, but because the ending only aired like 5 months ago by the time he uploaded this. So I don't know. This is very vague.
Well, actually, I'm fine with that in and of itself. I can believe Armin would say this to his best friend, who, as far as he can tell, has basically lost his mind. To me, this feels like Armin trying to comfort Eren during their last moments together, understanding that there's really nothing to be gained by reprimanding him now.
Well, you already reprimand him. That's the other thing, and he goes on to kill him.
I still don't enjoy it because it feels like there's a piece.
I agree, and if you would have watched the anime, you would have been fine.
I would expect true shock and horror from Armin here, for him to absolutely freak out, even if it won't really gain him anything. Because this is the biggest betrayal possible. Flattening the world they promised to see together. How could anything be worse? Yet somehow, he composes himself so quickly. Honestly, it feels as though this scene got skimmed over like a matter of course, giving us too much detail on the wrong things and keeping the stuff I want more details about consciously cryptic or too brief. Even in the anime, which gives more detail.
Oh my god. Okay, so he did watch the anime. Okay, so all what you just did was irrelevant. Like, I agree. Like, because of Betsu showing magazine and Kaseyama, you had 51 pages. And by the way, another very, 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 very interesting thing, a very tidbit for you new AOT fans. When the manga chapter dropped, we had people, so all sides, any defenders, any haters, AOE bros, we had everyone, like, what they would do is they would take the panels and they would rewrite them. They would write in the bubbles and like fix the ending. And what happened was they would overfill the bubbles. So they would put more words in than was reasonably expected of a person to read. It was like too crammed in there. And what that basically shows is that I'm just saying, it just proves my point, because they gave him only 51 pages and there's so much ground to cover that even when they try to go in and fix it, they're like, well, this is too little, and they had to stuff the bubbles full of stuff. So I agree, like, it was going through like fast, it was going up those checkpoints. I agree, but the anime fixes this, and then like all the criticism you said beforehand was completely irrelevant, because Armin does show shock and horror. Armin does freak out. Armin does. The mass murder line is fixed. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know what you're yapping. This seems very disingenuous, but it seems disingenuous. I give you the benefit of the doubt. Like, I didn't even watch this video. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, oh, maybe he wrote it before the ending. Like, that's very believable. But now here he is, like, oh, well, actually, I've seen the anime. Okay, well, so why were you yapping about this the entire time? And don't get me wrong, I'm still gonna debunk the whole he was seen as a hero nonsense. I want to finish his thought first.
Details and more of a reaction from Armin it still wasn't enough.
Okay, so this is added in post. Okay, his voice is a little bit different, so this is added in post.
And it really.
This is what I'm saying. Like, okay, this is what I'm saying about the tone. Okay, Armin grabs his collar, yells at him, says, "What are you doing? You're saying it's not enough." Okay, fine. If you feel it's not enough, give me an objective reason. What should Isayama have done then, and why? Justify that. This is my problem with these people. Like, please, like, a lot of this just feels very, very emotional. And this is a very strange video because I've never usually, like, so when it comes to Serenity is very plot. He's very plot oriented. So he goes through and he brings up, he knows his stuff. He brings up a lot of chapters. He brings up a lot of stuff. He brings up a lot of parallels. And he's obviously wrong. He misunderstands the story. He takes stuff out of context. But he has a certain interpretation of the story, and he twists the previous plot points, the prior chapters to fit its narrative. That's what Serenity does. And not a lot of it is emotional, but he doesn't bring his emotion to it a single time. Saint Chief the same way. Doesn't bring his emotion, especially less for Saint Chief, more Serenity. He doesn't bring his emotion in a single time. He just says this plot point, this one gets this one gets this. This just seems very vapid, and it's almost like what is the point of you making it? It's just you like talking to yourself. Like, it's fine, just like that's fine if you want to make a video, just getting your thoughts out. But like, what do you want us to do with this information? Like, you want to see? Are you saying that it was bad? This is why it's bad. Are you saying I should change this because you're saying it wasn't enough? Okay, like what would have been enough then, and what is the reason why it should have been enough? All this video, a lot of it seems extremely arbitrary, and it's just like, well, it didn't hit me this way, so it's bad. I didn't like this, so it's bad. It didn't make me feel the way I should have felt, so it's bad. A lot of this is extremely, extremely arbitrary. Which again, if he just wants to just rant and get his thoughts around, I mean that's fine. But he's saying that this was bad. Like, he's making objective claims, saying this was bad. This is where it failed, and he's saying that the chapter fell flat. And then he's saying objective things, and then he's using his subjective experience, his subjective opinions to say it's bad.
Undermines both of these characters for me. Speaking of skimming things over, though, yeah, his
Oh my god, I can't do this.
story.
I can't do this. I mean, I can't. Like, you know that Mr. Incredible meme? I can't. I'm not strong enough. Okay, I think he skipped over the whole heroes thing. Okay, so just a quick to touch on the whole the Aaron being portrayed as a hero. No, Aaron was not being portrayed as a hero not one time. Aaron had people who cared about him, who loved him, who are allowed and should, and not only are allowed to, but should. It is good that they express that sort of feelings. It's good. It's good to love someone. That's a good thing. That is a good thing to love someone. And if you love someone, you will express certain emotions. And so, yes, Armin is going to cry. Mikas is going to cry when he has his body. After they've killed him, they didn't cry when they didn't cry when they were doing it. They took care of business. They killed him, and then they cried afterwards. Perfectly appropriate. He's under the tree. Mikas is reminiscing about our childhood. No one is. And here's my thing. Here's where I'm saying that you're wrong. I have an objective formula. The reason why I'm saying he's not portrayed as a hero is because never once does any of the characters or the narrative try to portray what Aaron did is right. The show, through symbolism and dialogue and portrayal, which is kind of subjective, which is kind of like soft ground, portrays Aaron as evil. Always. The sea turns again. He went out of the way. The sea turns to blood. Armin reprimands him verbally. The symbolism shows he's a slave. He's the puppet strings. He's not free. His eyes are closed. All this is happening, and what I keep trying to tell people is, when you look at this scene, you see all the characters in pain. You're thinking, oh, he's being portrayed as a hero. No, he's being portrayed as being a. This is supposed to be viewed as tragic, not as a good thing. It's tragic that Aaron's character flaws are so bad to the point where he took himself away from the people who loved him. It's supposed to be like, damn, Aaron, this really sucks. You were so evil that you had to be killed, and now we can't. Now you're not with the people you love, and now they're missing you because of your actions. This is not supposed to be like, oh, Aaron's a hero when he sacrificed himself brilliantly. No, this is like, you messed up, Aaron. You messed up bad. You messed up big time, and now other people have to suffer because of your foolishness. That's what it's portrayed as. And the reason I'm saying that is because all the dialogue, all the symbolism shows Aaron is a bad person, and it is not only is it acceptable, it is a good thing. It is a good thing that the people who love him are expressing love. That is very, very important to convey, because there are people who love people who are bad people, and it's good for them. Loving them is a good thing. It's always a good thing to love someone, no matter who they are. It's a good thing. And so, if something happens, you take care of business, you do whatever, and then it is a good thing to express it. Because if you love someone, you will express those emotions, and it's good that you love them, so it's good that you express those emotions. That's what to say about that. Now, as far as the historian nonsense, I already know what he's going to say, and this is why I'm like, oh, I'm going to stop making AOT videos or AOT videos, because I'm just kidding. Like I've been to the same arguments. Like I've been more happy to like debate a natural person. I've been hearing the same arguments for 3 years. I do this over and over again, and it's like, as you can see, I'm kind of ticked off in the videos. So it doesn't bring a good vibe to the videos, to the content. Very unfortunately, I have a very antagonistic vibe, or antagonistic nature. So it's just no good to nobody. But I was told this is a great essay to react to, so I wanted to react to this. But I really am probably just going to release the Aaron character analysis or romance video, and then I'm going to be done with the AOT stuff. Whew. Oh well. Okay, let's continue. So Historia. No, first off, oh my god, writing someone out of a story is not a bad thing. Erwin was written out of a story, and Erwin is universally looked upon as like one of the greatest characters, best character conclusion, which is false. That'd be Aaron and make us up, but whatever. What are the best character conclusions? Whatever. I mean, even Hanji, people, that's a little bit more divisive, but like even Hanji, like she was written out of the story. So even if someone's written out of the story, that's perfectly acceptable. I never just whining and complaining and bickering about his story being written out of the story. Like that happens all the time. It's not a bad thing. Secondly, his story was not written out of the story. I don't know how many times this has to get explained. His story was the only. Now I'm getting angry. His story was the only reason why Aaron's plan worked. I actually made a video about this, which I may or may not link in the box somewhere. Historia was the only reason Aaron's plan worked. Historia was the only Jaegerist who was in the 104th, meaning, and as this is explicit in the story, she was able to guarantee their safety. That's why Connie's mom was fine. That's why the Alliance was fine after they got back to parity, because Historia is a Jaegerist who's also a part of the 104th. So, any other Homo sapien on Earth, this would have not worked. Aaron's plan would have worked. But it did work. When I say Aaron's plan, by the way, I mean them living long, happy lives and them being heroes. So, this wouldn't have worked without Historia. So Historia was vital, integral to the story and the ending. And even if she wasn't, if she served a purpose, she should be written out. There's no reason to have her if she doesn't serve a purpose anymore. Of course, she did serve a purpose in the ending. But this very strange thing where it's like, well, if you write someone else's story, it's a bad thing. It's ridiculous.
She stopped being nearly as relevant after the time skip, which makes sense. She's had her freedoms restricted due to her royal blood, and a tragic fate awaits her. But I don't care about it making sense. What I care about is that she was one of my favorite characters in the story.
Okay, I'm going to close this video. I can't even do this anymore. This man literally said, I don't care if it makes sense. She's just my favorite character. Okay, we don't care though. Like I don't like, this is supposed to be a critique video. Like, this one, like, I'm now like confused. Like, I'm trying to look in the description, like in the comments. I'm like, what? Let's see. What is happening? I'm so. Is he a pinned comment somewhere? No one. Okay, I'm so confused. Like what type of video is this? I feel like I've been duped. Like I feel like, because my friends told me, "Oh, you should watch this. It's great. It's a wonderful video. You should watch it." And I'm watching him. I'm like, this is so arbitrary. And now he's just saying, "Well, I don't care that." And he said, "Damn it, she was my favorite character." Oh, okay. With a U. He's not even American. Unbelievable. Okay, she was my favorite character. Okay, this.
Story. Someone who had great chemistry with Aaron due to the character barely doing anything. I wanted really skimming things over. Of motivation for Aaron. But for all my talk about skimming things over, I've been doing some skimming myself, haven't I? After all, I haven't even touched on what might be the true final twist of Attack on Titan. The reveal of what Aaron's future and past sight abilities have done to his brain and perception of free will. The fact that everything that happened here was preordained, predetermined, and that this was the ultimate challenge to Aaron's freedom-focused ideals. Thematically, I get this. Aaron was...
Alright, No, I'm gonna cook for a little bit.
So focused on freedom, but now it's revealed he never had any in the first place. He thought he was making choices based on that desire for freedom, but can they really be called choices if he does these things out of something so close to biological instinct that it becomes set in stone? Something that he sees will happen not only because it's destined, but because he made it destined. And yet, paradoxically, he's only making this choice because of those ideals. On paper, I actually think this is pretty neat, if a bit confusing. A solid, tragic end to his character that
Okay, again. So I spent so much time in the beginning nitpicking. So I don't actually know if he understood compatibilism correctly. He might have. He might have. But very, very close thing to note. First of all, every character in AOT has free will, number one. But number two, most importantly, determinism or compatibilism, whatever you want to, whatever you believe it is not the challenge to Aaron's ideals of freedom. The seashell is. And again, if like I understand, like he did do this before the anime aired because he when he talked about the anime, it was a different voice. So obviously he put that in after. So okay, this is before the anime ended. Um, no, the ultimate critique of Aaron's ideals is Armin. Armin, who is always this is why we talk about his eyes all the time. This is why he was chosen to be the Colossal Titan. His eyes, what he saw in his eyes. When Aaron looked into Armin's eyes, he thought that experiencing the ocean would give Aaron those eyes. He did not get those eyes because Armin had those eyes not because of what happened outside, but because of what was inside. What he explained to Zeke in 137. That's why, again, Zeke says when he wakes up, and when I say wakes up, I mean metaphorically. When he wakes up, he looks around and he says, "What a beautiful day! If only I realized it earlier." That's what he says. Now, of course, we all know he's actually talking about the beautiful day. He's talking about life in general. Then this gets fixed for the anime. In the anime, Armin grabs a seashell, and Aaron says, "Where did you find that?" And Armin says, "It was at our feet the whole time, but you were always looking off to the distance." Now, obviously, he's not talking about the seashell. Obviously, what he means is freedom was always right there. Like, you always had freedom at your feet, but you were always looking off to the distance. And the way that I describe it is Aaron's always chasing the horizon, but the problem is that when you get to the horizon, there's another horizon. This is exactly what happened with Aaron. He wanted to kill all Titans. He killed all Titans. He got rid of all Titans of Perry. Still not happy. He got to the ocean. Still unhappy. He's like, okay, I'm going to do the rumbling. He got to do the rumbling. Still unhappy. Every time there's always an inhibitor on his freedom because of freedom. The fact of that is he got to fix himself first, and then he would be free. That's the problem. And so this is it's very slight. Like it's very slight, but it does exasperate over time. The true reason why the true critique of Aaron's ideals and Aaron's freedom is not determinism or compatibilism, however you choose to interpret it. Of course, you'd be wrong if you don't interpret it as compatibilism because it is compatibilist. It is the fact that Armin's the true flow to his freedom. Armin, 137, the seashell, 139. That's the true challenge to his ideals of freedom. In fact, actually, if you want to talk about like real true challenge, like the most direct challenge to freedom, that would be him in 131, a child surrounded by walls, saying whoever sees those things will be the first person in the world. Saying, and of course, Mappa cuts this out. I don't know why Mappa cut this out. If you're, the first thing he removes from freedom is ignorance. Completely ignorant of what he's doing. He cannot see anything because of the smoke. He's surrounded by these walls. He's a child, and then inside the Titan, he has his eyes closed, symbolism, and he's suspended by these strings. So he's not truly free. That's even though he's everything he could ever imagine. He's all the power in the world. He's able to do whatever he wants. He's achieving his dreams. Even then, he's still not free. That is the real challenge to Aaron's ideals, not determinism. I played too much. Holy shit.
Challenges him more than ever before. And yet, I don't like it at all. I actually kind of hate it. I've tried to enjoy it. I've reread and rewatched this story, and particularly this scene, so many times. But this final twist only ever leaves me annoyed in a way that's honestly been hard to put into words. And that's because while I've seen people debate the logic of this scene, that isn't really what matters to me.
I'm surprised to recommend this video. This is all, I would much rather watch the Serenity video. Because at least Serenity He obviously misinterprets the story, but at least he like tries to put it like to be logical and not arbitrary. But this is really, he's like, well, it was logical, but I don't care that it was logical. Like, I want the person to like it. Like, what am I supposed to do? I don't understand like, what's anyone supposed to do with this information?
What matters is that one way or the other, Aaron's actions here were greatly influenced by his future sight ability.
Okay, there it is, right there. Okay, so no, you're wrong. You're wrong. Completely wrong. I tell people all the time, like, if you believe that the Aaron receiving memories from the story gets like changes the plot, doesn't change the plot. The memories are there again. This all ties back together, guys. Purely for a thematic reason. They exist. The same reason why the Grisha twist exists. He is fighting himself. He gets these memories. The memories do him no good. They don't change anything. Which is, again, oh my god. I don't know, let's bring this up again, which is why if the memories actually truly changed anything, he would have let Ramsey get beaten up, but he did not. Again, this is like the party opportunity right there. He has the memories. He's gonna change his actions based on his memories. Oh, but no, he saves Ramsey anyway. Grisha, he sees memories. He's gonna get his actions influence. Okay, don't give Aaron the attack time, Zeke. Oh, I'm not gonna give Aaron the attack time because of my memories. But then he doesn't get the attack time anyway. So no, the memories don't change. I think the memories change literally nothing. It's almost literally nothing. The plot would end the exact same way. He's not influenced by these memories at all. The normal would have happened. Mikasa would have killed him, and so all would have happened with the memories. The way compatibilism works, as I said a billion times, is he sees the future because it's a future according to his will. It's what he wants to happen, so he will see it. Not the other way around. This is why in 130, Aaron said, even if it was all set in stone from the start, everything happened by my will. So it's all set in stone, but it happened by my will. He set it in stone. That's how compatibilism works.
Rather
That's how AOT works.
than purely by the life experiences and parts of the story I had witnessed up until now.
It's just I don't know which alien defenders talked to you, but they were obviously doing a very poor job of explaining this to you. Like, this is not how this works.
Totally muddies his motivations to me. Did he choose this path because he wanted to complete the rumbling? Did he do it because he wanted his friends to be heroes, even if I think that's really dumb? Did he do it because this was the only guarantee of wiping out the Titans, but also because it was the only future he saw at all? Is it some sort of mix of all the above? Did Aaron not choose this path because after all it was the only path he saw, or was it the only path he saw because it was the only path he ever would have chosen? I
the
don't
latter.
know.
You don't know because you don't read. Now, to quickly, oh god, I brought up the line with Aaron saying, "I'm an idiot. That's why you got power. That's why this is the only possible outcome." I brought up this Ramsey thing. I brought up the Zeke. I brought up the Aaron Grisha giving Aaron the attack Titan example. Yeah, no, guys, this is just like if you were to actually read the story, this is just like no. Aaron does the rumbling because he went to do the rumbling. Now it's true, like it's true. He did move forward because he knew the was going to end. However, he was going to do that regardless. He saw the future because that was the future was inevitable to happen because he wanted it to happen. Period. In the story. That's why it says this was the only possible outcome. It's a great way to put it. It's the only possible outcome. Again, I use this analogy all the time. Mayo sandwich. I hate mayonnaise. It's my nature to hate mayonnaise. No one in my environment has coerced me to eat mayo sandwiches. Therefore, it is the only possible outcome that I will not eat a mayo sandwich because it's not my nature to, and no one is going to force me to. So it goes to follow that it's the only possible outcome that I'm not going to eat a mayo sandwich. It's the same thing with Aaron. Same thing with compatibilism.
And maybe that's part of the point, right? Just like Aaron, I don't know exactly what happened. He's confused, I'm confused, but what I do know is that I don't like that. What I do know is that I would have loved to see more of why Aaron thought this was the best course of action in a way that went beyond the fact that his past and future sight abilities had fried his brain. What I do know is I would have loved it if this final chapter didn't twist the moment that had got me fully invested in the story in the first place.
Yes.
That
whole
day,
Diana twist.
that time, I just knew Bert Holt wasn't supposed to die yet. The one who let him go and made her go that way was...
Crazy sounds in here.
This video is long enough.
For all the great twists and turns Attack on Titan
I'm gonna finish this.
had in its plot, that was never what made me truly love the story. No, it was the characters. With startling efficiency, it slowly
That's the problem right there, is that you like the characters and not the themes. No.
gave each of them depth,
There's
laying
your
a
issue.
breadcrumb trail of hints about their underlying motives and personalities throughout, which only made rereads and rewatches even better. And those moments I would always go back to that just got better every single time I experienced the story. Those explosive, emotional scenes only made possible by carefully considered storytelling. Levi's choice between Erwin and Armin, perfectly built up by his interactions with Kenny and this idea that everyone needs something to live for. Ymir's backstory, her moment of ecstasy as she
Glad you
regains
understood that.
control over her own body, waking up beneath a beautiful starlit sky. Particularly in the anime, the swell of the music and the simply glorious presentation. Jean's change from a selfish coward aiming to live an easy life inside the walls to one of the most brave and responsible recruits, spurred forward by the convictions of a fallen friend. Reiner's tortured past and his various betrayals, the parallels between him and Eren, Zeke going from a simple monkey man to the character with so many layers of motivation and a gut-wrenching, tragic past that only revealed Grisha's deepest failures, and, well, I could go on. But the important thing, the point here, is that these are the scenes I always remember because they made the characters feel real to me. Like they were making what they could of this chaotic and crazy world, making the best choices they could see, even if you never know what the outcome will be. And one of those fantastic moments, the very first of those fantastic moments, well, it was this, the emotional core of Attack on Titan that was so easy to grasp.
Again, emotional core.
All of this madness spiraled out of control because one young boy watched his mother.
No, you're wrong. This is why I say, like, no, you were not. No, this didn't. His mother, again, his mother could not have died in the story would have ended the exact same way. The exact same way. I don't know why it's going to get brought up. Like, this is a very. I always tell people, like, what did Mikasa tattle and Eren about? He wanted to join the Story Corps. What, he wanted to join the Story Corps, right? Before his mother, Mikasa tattled to his alive mother about him wanting to join the Story Corps. He was already ready to fight Titans and go off. He was already angry and bitter about the Titans before his mother did not change the course, the trajectory of his life. It was an emotional moment for you, so you interpret the story as being that way, which is the trap that emotions give. You were like, oh, wow, this is a really emotional, impactful moment, and now it's like, oh, great, this is what sparked this whole... No, it's not. What sparked this whole journey was Eren's innate character flaws that he never addressed. That's what happened. Much more subtle, much more implicit, but it builds up throughout the narrative. It's what happens when you care about character-driven stories rather than theme-driven stories. This is what happens. This is the kind of nonsense that you fall into. Ugh.
Get brutally murdered right in front of his eyes. No matter what other twists there were, no matter how complex the rest of the stuff could get, that remained the simple beginning of our terrifying story. But that's no longer the case. Now this was a choice Eren made, or alternatively, something that was destined to happen, so he had already made that choice before he even chose to make it in the first place. So this conversation with Reiner, where he asked him why his mother...
That's right, this all connects, guys. This is why I talked about the beginning with the Reiner situation. Of why I explicitly say he's not grilling him on like why his mom, he's not like being like, why is my mom died? Like, answer for Idon Reiner. This is him drawing parallels between what he did and what Reiner did. And he's using these questions to lead him to say that. Why my mother died. And the answer's supposed to be, my mother died because we invaded. Why'd you invade? Because we need to save the world. And then, it goes to that whole thing. This wasn't, people completely misinterpreted the scene. And you felt emotional, instead of actually reading the scene for what it is and having a reading comprehension, you had an emotional feeling about the scene, so you corrupted your interpretation of it.
Had to die, where I believed all the things I had experienced in the narrative that affected him were what led to this change in him. Well, ultimately, that's not what caused this. Instead, Eren only got to this point because he saw what had happened and is now talking about his own culpability in his mother's murder. And I can't feel anything toward that other than confusion.
Again, I can't feel. I'm sorry.
Frustration. The version of Eren I had enjoyed, the one I had spent so much time with, did something because of mechanics and ideas that don't feel human to me. Manipulating the past? I don't care about that. Not in this story. I care about choices. I care about characters and seeing how they react to the world around them. I care about Aaron's conversation with Reiner exposing his disturbing view of the world and how he's found himself able to connect with the enemy, rather than him hinting at the fact that he was the one responsible for his mother's death. I care about Aaron being the protagonist of this story and not the final mystery box waiting to be opened. I've seen people say that those who don't like the ending simply didn't get
Yeah,
the
and wait a second.
that people bought into the hype of Aaron's villain side, even when it should have been obvious that this was a front for some deeper plan, even if he was also still villainous. And yet, for me, that couldn't be further from the truth.
I see that. I do see that.
I thought Aaron's villainous side was an incredibly natural extension of his prior developments, a fantastic way to show his downfall and how the pressures placed upon him had destroyed any semblance of a moral compass he once had, but how, at the same time, some of this had been in him from the very start and had simply gone unnoticed. In some ways, that's still what the story is about.
Yes.
And yet,
Yes.
clouding all of that is this course of action Aaron took to rid the world of the curse of the Titans, a choice he only made because of a future he saw.
Again, I agree with you. The only reason why he knew that the Titan Curse was going to end is because Ymir showed him. I agree with that. However, you're missing the main reason Aaron wanted to destroy the world is because he was disappointed humanity exists outside the walls. Not the alien impression, not to have his friends live long, happy lives, not to, well, say for Mikasa. Mikasa's obviously different than his friends. Not to make his friends heroes. The reason that he started the rumbling is because he was disappointed humanity exists outside the walls. He wants to extinguish humanity again. That's why Armin says in the anime, I put the idea of an unoccupied world in your head. Not a world free of alien oppression, an unoccupied world in your head. Okay? He wanted a world unoccupied of human beings, period. No qualifiers, nothing. Unoccupied world of humans, period. And that's why he did the rumbling. Everything else is secondary. It is like saying, okay, it's like if I call you and I say, okay, dear viewer, since you're an amazing subscriber to the Blue the Jaegers, Great Sending Defender, I'm going to give you $50,000. Drive to this location, you get $50,000, and then you drive there, and on your way to drive there to the location I tell you to drive to, I say, oh, also, when you get there, you'll find a brand new car for yourself. So yeah, you get a new car too. All right, let's make this actually a lesser thing. It's actually a bad analogy. I'll say, you'll get a new phone. Yeah, there'll be a brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max there, right? So is he driving? If you ask him, like, if he will say to you, yeah, I'm driving to go get this iPhone 15 Pro Max. That would be a true statement, and he would be driving to get the iPhone 15 Pro Max because I told him it. However, the primary reason he's going there is for the $50,000. He would have gone there, and he was going there before. Because remember, guys. He knew the Titan Curse was going to... Well, actually, he did know when he gets the Sword's Hand, but that's just... Remember, guys, he was going to do this regardless if the Titan Curse was going to end or not. He was not doing this to end the Titan Curse. He was not doing this to do this. He never... And again, guys, look at the actual dialogue. Everybody never says, I'm doing this because of the end of the Titan Curse. What he says is, I want to run the world. Why do you want to run the world? He says, I want to so very badly. I don't know why. I just want to do it. And then Armin says, I want to erase humanity too. I feel like that too. I put the idea of an unoccupied world in your head. That's the actual dialogue. And then when it comes to the Titan Curse ending, Aaron's like, yeah, Ymir's been waiting for someone. I felt that connection. He's waiting for Ymir. I don't know what Mikasa will do. I know there's a choice. Choice will end the Titan Curse. He never says, and then he says, I move forward towards that result. Of course, the mind was different. But he never actually says, when all the dialogue is surrounding Aaron actually doing this because of his own reasonings, not to make his friends heroes, not to say a parody, not to end Titan Curse. Those are all extremely secondary and after the fact. And a lot of these were after the fact. Again, he was risking his friends' lives until he entered paths. He didn't know that they were going to survive or not until he entered paths because he didn't. He got 2 sets of memories, of course. That's a whole other conversation. But this is just ridiculous. Just straight up nonsense in the story. It almost seems intentional to where you're purposefully missing the point so you can make these nonsense criticisms.
But one that I only learned about right at the end of the story. Removing the readers and audience from Aaron's perspective for so long.
Another thing, I hate to just belabor the point, but another thing. He says I only experienced at the end of the story. Which, again, to modern audiences, it seems like a fine criticism. Yeah, you shouldn't have something introduced in the story. Why is it relevant, though? Because it's only relevant to the person's enjoyment of the story. When they're reading it, and then like, oh yeah, I enjoyed the story, but if you read it again, and you can see the seeds being planted, it's still there. So the criticism, oh, it's only at the end of the story. That has nothing to do with the quality of the story, nothing to do with the actual narrative. That's just you complaining that you didn't get the emotional, you know, check that your emotional cashing that you wanted. That's all it is. It's not an actual criticism. It's just you don't want the emotional reveal, because if it can be taken away, if that problem can be taken away upon a second viewing, you already know what's going to happen. You already seen the seeds being planted. You already seen the steps being laid out on the second viewing. Then it's not really a real criticism. It's just an emotional thing.
Long with
And again, I really hate to belabor the point, but I really just want to show all the ways that this emotional viewing of storytelling actually sneaks up on people. And you may have thought that was benign at first, and an actual good criticism. If you probably thought, "Oh, this is fake," but it's a good criticism. All that's untrue. Like this is all just childishness from start to finish.
it's always a big risk. For some, it worked out. But for me, it allowed way too much time to get invested in ideas and concepts that run counter to the story's final moments. It allowed me to believe in an ending where Aaron truly wanted to see the rumbling through to its end and would either succeed or fail based on a conflict with his friends. And it allowed me to believe, through it all, that the simple beginning of our story held true. Maybe this would have worked better if I could relate to the emotions more, if I had seen more about Aaron's feelings regarding these specific things. I would have certainly rather seen him come to the conclusion that he could foster this connection between Ymir and Mikasa. I would have rather spent more time on his relationship with Mikasa. I would have rather spent more time focusing on the potential idea that Aaron only saw this future because it was the future he chose and not so much about destiny.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's again laid out very. I mean, very clearly. I'm not going to go over this
We
again.
couldn't do that. We couldn't spend time on the emotions here and on confirming some details. Of course not, because that would ruin the twist. And so, by its end, Attack on Titan had gone from a story about a character I loved, with some startling twists that challenged him, to a story where the character became the twist itself. Does this ruin the story for me altogether? No. I still love plenty of Attack on Titan. I can still appreciate so much of what it showed me. That it introduced me to anime in the first place and to manga by extension. That it got me so excited about these mediums that I ended up making this YouTube channel in the first place. So I'm not
Very,
going
very unfortunately.
to pretend that this ending undoes all the great things.
Okay, this is not important at all. Okay, great. So that's the video. Holy cow! I don't know. It's kind of awkward when I end these videos, these reaction videos. I don't really know what to say afterward, but I actually have plenty to say afterwards. This just goes to show the absolute, the pitfalls of subjectivism and relativism and emotionalism. This was entirely arbitrary. And maybe I may have misinterpreted the point of this video. Just again, I want to make this clear. I know people have trouble grasping concepts as shown by this video. I'm not saying you cannot feel emotion about a story. I'm not saying you cannot express your emotional criticism of the story. I'm just saying you cannot say a story is good or bad because of your emotions. That's all I'm saying. Again, I get extremely emotional at AOT. Very, very emotional. I just don't talk about my emotional experience of the story when I'm talking about what's good or bad in the story. I talk about what's actually good or bad in the story. I will have conversations, but when I'm talking about, oh, this scene hit me, I like this scene, this was a great scene, I felt this way during the scene, I'll do that. But this is maybe this wasn't actually supposed to be an ending critique video. I'm trying to go back to the introduction, like remember it, and I'm also like reading the description. Of course, I'm a thumbs down. This I should have done earlier. Yeah, I don't know, and he's not replying to the comments. I don't know. No, but this just a very. This just goes to show how extremely arbitrary things can get when it comes to storytelling. How extremely irrational things can get when it comes to just relying on your emotions. And again, emotions are a big part of storytelling. And a story, usually, generally speaking, a story will be emotionally impactful. It's good. Again, generally speaking, of course, you can't account for everyone, which is why I'm saying generally speaking. But generally speaking, a story will be emotionally impactful. But this is utter nonsense. I mean, this guy complete and I hope that, and I'm glad this video exists because this is what all ending haters really think. This is what Serenity and Sanctum Chief and Browns Magic and everyone else actually thinks. they are much more logical, and they try to be logical, and they go through, I hate to use the phrase gaslight themselves. For like a better word, they will gaslight themselves into believing this is actually a retcon or bad for the story, or whatever. But this is what they actually, all Indian haters, all ATNR people, all AoE bros. This is what they is. I love the quote. I don't care about it making sense. I care about her character. I care about how I felt about her character. That's what he said about Astoria. That's what just comes along in the story. They don't care about it making sense. They care about the themes. They care about the plot. They will rewrite stuff based on their emotions. They don't care about anything. They just care about their own emotional satisfaction. And that is all well and good. That is perfectly acceptable. Just don't say that ending was bad, and don't say it's not feel the story. All right, thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video.